My brother waited until everyone had a paper plate in front of them before he told the room I had chosen deployment over our mother. That detail has always stayed with me, not the accusation itself, the plates. My Aunt Linda was peeling the foil off a pan of baked ziti. Denise had found Gail Vance's good serving spoon in the wrong drawer and was standing there holding it like evidence. Somebody had brought grocery store cookies decorated with pink frosting roses, even though my mother hated pink frosting and once described those exact cookies as sweetened drywall. Then Scott said, "I'm not going to pretend Mara couldn't have been here." The kitchen went still in uneven stages. I had been home for 31 hours. My dress uniform was hanging in my mother's bedroom because she had never trusted hotel irons. There was still cemetery dirt in the seams of my shoes. "Scott," I said. He looked at me across our mother's table. "What?" "Everybody's thinking it." Nobody admitted to that. I put down my fork. "Stop, I stayed. You left." His eyes were red, but his voice was steady. "That's the whole story. It would have been easier if he had shouted." I took out my phone, opened the voicemail I had listened to exactly once, and pressed play. For 2 seconds, there was only my mother's oxygen machine hissing in the background. Then Gail's voice filled the kitchen. "Mara, honey, if Scott tells them you left me, don't you dare carry that for him." Scott's face changed before anybody else's did. 11 months earlier, my mother tore my hardship deferment paperwork in half over a bowl of canned peaches. She did it neatly, which somehow made it worse. "Mom." "No. That is a federal form." It was a federal form. I stared at the 2 pieces lying beside her spoon. You know, destroying government documents is the sort of thing that gets your house searched. Good. Maybe they'll find my blue sweater. It's in the hall closet. No, the other blue sweater. She lifted another peach slice to her mouth with the serene expression of a woman who had committed an act of sabotage and considered the matter settled. I had driven in from Fort Campbell the night before with the paperwork in a black accordion folder behind the passenger seat. It was February, cold enough that the bare trees along her street looked brittle. The house smelled like lemon cleaner, Vicks, and the cinnamon candle she only lit when she wanted to disguise the smell of the Vicks. My mother sat at the kitchen table in a robe printed with tiny red cardinals. Clear oxygen tubing ran under her nose and looped behind both ears. The concentrator in the living room made its steady, mechanical sigh. I picked up the torn pages. "I have another copy," I told her. "Then I'll tear that one too. I'll print another. I raised you. You think I don't know where the printer is? You called it a copier until 2019. And yet I've located it." I lowered myself into the chair across from her. "Can we have one conversation where you don't act like being difficult is a competitive sport? We could, but you'd miss me." There it was, my mother's favorite maneuver. Put the blade in, then make you laugh so you couldn't complain about bleeding. I looked down at the first page. My name, rank, unit information, requested action. Under reason for request, I had typed primary family hardship arising from terminal parental illness. The phrase had taken me 40 minutes. Gail reached for her coffee, which had gone cold. "I am not terminal this morning," she said. "That isn't how terminal works." Says who? Medicine. Medicine also told me I should enjoy unsalted broth. "You have pulmonary fibrosis." I'm aware. I was there when they mentioned it. "And I have deployment orders." Yes, Jordan. "I own a map. I can request a deferment. You can request anything. I request a thinner neck every time I look in the mirror. Mom." Her fingers tightened around the mug. The skin on the back of her hand looked almost translucent under the kitchen light. She noticed me noticing and tucked that hand into her lap. I hated that she did that. I hated more that I understood why. "You have been waiting for this assignment," she said. "I have not been waiting for you to get sick. Those are 2 separate sentences. Not anymore." She sat back, breathing through her nose. Slow in, slower out. She had learned to make difficulty look like patience. If you didn't know her, you might have thought she was calmly considering my argument. I knew she was counting until her lungs stopped clawing. I reached for the tubing where it had caught under the edge of her robe. Don't fuss. It's kinked. So am I. I freed it anyway. At 39, I had spent 18 years in the Army learning that panic was usually just energy without an assignment. You gave it a task, check the route, count the personnel, find the nearest fuel point, confirm the backup frequency. If there was blood, put pressure on it. If there was fire, move upwind. My mother's disease refused every task I gave it. There was no upwind. You don't even know what the next 9 months are going to look like, I said. Neither do you. I know enough. No, you know how to build a binder. She pointed toward the black accordion folder. That's not a binder. It has tabs. Don't lie in my kitchen. A key turned in the back door before I could answer. Scott came in carrying 2 grocery bags and a flattened case of bottled water under one arm. He used his hip to close the door. "Why is your driveway a sheet of ice?" he asked. "Because it's February," Mom said. "You own salt. I also own a son." Scott set the bags on the counter and looked at me. He was 43 and had recently grown a beard that made him look either distinguished or homeless, depending on the lighting. That morning, it was a close call. "You tell her?" he asked. "She ambushed me with paperwork," Mom said. I placed it on the table. Military ambush. Scott saw the torn form. One corner of his mouth moved. "Don't encourage her," I said. "I'm not. I just respect decisive action. You two should start a government." "We'd get more done," Mom said. Scott unpacked groceries while I gathered the ruined pages. Store-brand soup, bananas, chocolate pudding, a rotisserie chicken whose plastic lid had fogged from the heat. He held up a bag of reduced sodium crackers. "These taste like roof shingles," he told Mom. "Then why did you buy them?" "Because your doctor hates joy," that's what I said. Scott had always been able to make her laugh faster than I could. I knew that about them. He knew it too. When we were growing up, I was the one who checked whether the doors were locked before bed. Scott was the one who could talk Mom out of grounding us after he had been the reason we were grounded. He once backed Dad's Buick through the garage door and somehow ended the evening with Dad apologizing for leaving the keys where Scott could find them. Some people became more responsible with age. Scott became more convincing. But the previous year had changed him. His contracting business folded after 2 clients failed to pay, and a 3rd project bled him dry. He sold his truck, moved into a 1-bedroom apartment near the highway, and stopped answering calls for almost a month. Mom said he was regrouping. I said people who were regrouping generally told someone where they were. Then she got worse. Scott started taking her to appointments. He learned how to change the filters on the oxygen concentrator. He fixed the loose railing on the basement stairs, even though she had been forbidden to use them. Every Tuesday he brought dinner, usually something roasted because roasting food made him feel competent. He wasn't unreliable in the simple way. That would have been easier. Scott could be extraordinary in an emergency. It was ordinary Wednesdays that defeated him. He put the pudding cups in the refrigerator and nodded toward my folder. "You're really trying to get out of it?" "I'm trying to defer." "Same difference." "No, it isn't. To the people going without you, it probably is." I studied him. "Did Mom ask you to say that?" Mom lifted her coffee. "I don't need a spokesman." Scott leaned against the counter. "She didn't ask me. I'm asking. You've been talking about this rotation for what? A year? It's a deployment, not a cruise." "I know what it is. Do you?" His expression tightened. I regretted it as soon as I said it, but regret has never pulled words back into a mouth. Scott had not served. Neither had our father. In the Vance family, the military had been my strange foreign country, a place they supported in theory and resented whenever it changed Thanksgiving. Mom could name every base where I'd been stationed. Scott still called any set of fatigues camos because he knew it annoyed me. He turned to the grocery bag and removed a loaf of bread that did not need removing. "I know you've worked for this," he said. "That's what I meant." Mom looked between us. "Wonderful. Now that everyone's offended, can we solve the actual problem?" "The solution is that I stay," I said. "No," she said. "That's your solution. It's a pretty good one." "For who?" "You. You think having you sit here watching me breathe is going to cure me? I'd do more than sit. Oh, I know. You'd reorganize my medicine cabinet and put evacuation arrows on the floor. I would hire help. You can hire help from Jordan. I would take you to your appointments. Scott takes me. My eyes move to him. He lifted both hands. I take her. For now. The room changed by half a degree. Scott's hands dropped. What's that supposed to mean? It means you're starting a new job next month. Part-time. And you've got your own life. So do you, apparently. Enough, Mom said. But Scott had already pushed away from the counter. You think I can't handle it. I think this is a progressive disease, not a leaky sink. Right. Better get the professional daughter. I didn't say that. You made a folder. It's what I do. Exactly. That landed harder than it should have. My competence had always made Scott feel accused. If I arrived 10 minutes early, he heard a criticism of when he arrived. If I made a list, he assumed his name was at the top of it. Half the time, I wasn't thinking about him at all, which may have been the part he hated most. Mom pressed her lips together and took 2 careful breaths. We both stopped. Scott was beside her first. You okay? She waved him off, but he crouched next to her chair anyway. He checked the oxygen line, followed it with his hand to where it disappeared around the doorway, and listened for the concentrator. His movements were quick, but gentle. I'm fine, she said. You're doing that thing. What thing? The thing where you pretend not breathing is a personality choice. She looked at him, and something passed between them that I could not enter. Then she patted his cheek. I'm all right. Scott stayed crouched until her shoulders lowered. Watching him, I felt some tight internal cable loosen. Not completely. Just enough to notice it had been there. He stood and faced me. I can do this, he said. I glanced at Mom. 9 months is a long time. I live 10 minutes away. You also forget to charge your phone. I bought a second charger. That doesn't mean you'll use it. Mara, Mom said. Scott folded his arms. Give me the schedule. Teach me whatever you think I don't know. Call every day if that makes you happy. This isn't about making me happy. No, he said. It's about taking care of her. Mom looked down at the torn form. I wanted certainty, a measurable thing, a signed hand receipt, a confirmed transport, a clean answer from someone who could guarantee my mother would still be sitting at that table when I came home. Families do not issue guarantees. They make promises in kitchens while a rotisserie chicken cools on the counter. Home health visits stay in place, I said. Scott nodded. You don't cancel them because she complains. I'm sitting right here, Mom said. You call if her oxygen needs change. You call if she falls. You call if she starts hiding symptoms. I do not hide symptoms. Scott and I both looked at her. She sniffed. Continue. You tell me the truth, I said to him. Not the version you think I can handle while I'm there. His jaw shifted, but he nodded again. And if she asks me to come home? Mom opened her mouth. I pointed at her. He answers. Scott looked at our mother, then at me. You'll know, he said. I promise. Mom reached across the table and placed her hand over the torn deferment request. Good, she said. Now somebody find my blue sweater. We found the sweater in the linen closet under 3 beach towels and a heating pad that had not worked since the Clinton administration. That is not blue, Scott said. It's blue-gray, Mom said. It's gray. You've always had a limited eye. I used to paint houses for a living. And look how that turned out. Scott stood there with the sweater hanging from one hand. Mom stared at the floor. For one dangerous second, nobody breathed. Then Scott draped the sweater over her head. She squawked as her face disappeared into wool. What is wrong with you? Limited eye. Poor judgment. He worked her arms into the sleeves while she insulted him. I watched them stumble through the joke and wondered how many jokes it took to build a bridge strong enough for 9 months. The black accordion folder became a white 3-ring binder because my mother distrusted anything that could not lie flat. I put it together at her dining room table over the next several weekends. The tabs were red for medication, green for appointments, yellow for meals, and blue for oxygen equipment. I typed the emergency contacts on one sheet in large print and slid it into the front cover. Mom read it upside down. Why is Scott's number above yours? He's local. I knew it. Knew what? You have a favorite. She pointed at his name. You think I prefer the man who nearly burned down Dad's grill by using gasoline? It caught faster. It also caught the shrub. A tactical error, Scott said from the kitchen. He was making chili, which meant opening cans with confidence. Denise sat at the counter cutting peppers into identical squares. She and Scott had been together for 6 years but maintained separate apartments, separate bank accounts, and separate opinions about whether that arrangement meant they were committed or cautious. Denise was a respiratory therapist at a rehabilitation hospital outside Dayton. She had a narrow face, quiet eyes, and the irritating habit of listening completely before answering. The first time Scott brought her to Christmas dinner, Mom whispered to me, "That woman sees through walls." Denise picked up the binder and turned a few pages. "This is good," she said. Scott groaned. "Don't validate her. The medication log is good. The symptom scale is too complicated. It's 1 through 5. You've defined 5 as urgent respiratory distress, requiring immediate intervention. If she's in urgent distress, nobody's going to stop and circle a number." "I might," Mom said. "You're the reason we need a binder," I told her. Denise took a pen from behind her ear and crossed out 2 lines. Use green, yellow, red. Green is normal for Gail. Yellow is call the nurse. Red is call 911. "Finally," Scott said. Colors. There were already colors. Those were tab colors. Now we have emergency colors. Totally different military branch. I let Denise revise the page because she was right, and Scott looked almost disappointed that I did not defend it. That was how preparation went. Every practical decision picked up an emotional shadow. If I ordered a shower chair, Mom said I was furnishing a nursing home. If I asked Scott to attend an oxygen safety appointment, he said he already knew fire was bad. When I scheduled a paid aide named Celia for 3 mornings a week, Mom announced she would wear clothes in the shower before permitting a stranger to bathe her. Celia came for an introduction on a Saturday. She was in her 50s, with silver braids and purple glasses, and she responded to Mom's hostility by asking where she kept the good coffee. "I don't need help making coffee," Mom said. "I didn't ask if you needed help. I asked where you keep it." Mom looked at her for a long moment. "Freezer." "Of course it is. You object?" "I object to many things. Frozen coffee is currently number 4. They were discussing game shows within 20 minutes. I paid the first month in advance. Scott found out when he saw the receipt clipped behind the green tab. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "I know. You could have asked me. Would you have said yes? That's not the point. What is the point?" He flipped the binder shut. "You come in here, assign everybody a lane, spend money, and then leave." The word sat between us. Mom and Celia were in the living room arguing over a television host. Denise had gone home. The chili pot soaked in the sink, leaving an orange ring around the water line. "I'm not pretending I'm staying," I said. "No, you've turned leaving into a project. Scott, this is what responsible adults do. They plan." His face hardened. "There it is." "What?" The little speech under the speech. "I'm not giving a speech. You don't have to. You've been giving it your whole life." I closed the binder more gently than I felt. "Say what you mean." He leaned both hands on the back of a dining chair. "You think I'm going to screw this up?" I could have lied. I had lied more kindly in debriefs where vehicles had actually caught fire. "I think you'll need help." That wasn't the question. "You want me to say, I have no concerns?" "I do." "Because of the business?" "Because of a pattern." He laughed once. "Of course you keep a pattern. You asked." "No, I asked if you trusted me. That isn't a yes or no question. It is to most human beings." From the living room, Mom shouted, "If you two are discussing me, do it louder. I can't hear." "We're discussing the binder," Scott called. "Then do it quieter." Scott looked toward her voice. Some of the fight went out of his shoulders. "I'm here," he said to me. "I've been here. I see that. Do you?" There was no answer I could give that would not become another piece of evidence. He picked up the dish towel, dried his hands even though they were not wet, and went into the living room. I stayed at the table with the binder. The problem with being organized is that people assume your lists protect you from fear. Usually the list is where the fear lives. I had written Celia's phone number twice. The week before I left, Mom hosted what she called my not-a-going-away dinner. Aunt Linda brought potato salad and complained that nobody had told her it was not a going-away dinner early enough to change the label on her disposable dish. Denise brought a lemon pie. Scott roasted a chicken and monitored it like he expected the oven to betray him. Mom wore the blue-gray sweater, even though the kitchen was warm. Nobody mentioned the disease during dinner. They asked me about Jordan in the careful, inaccurate way civilians ask about deployments. "Will you be near the fighting?" Aunt Linda asked. "What fighting?" Mom said. "Be specific." Linda frowned. "The fighting over there." "I'll be managing ground movement operations and convoy schedules," I said. Scott sliced the chicken. "So traffic, with weapons. Ohio has that. It's mostly coordination." Mom pointed her fork at Linda. "She'll make sure the trucks arrive where the trucks are supposed to arrive." "I knew that," Linda said. "You asked about fighting. Trucks can be near fighting." Denise handed me the pie server. "You'll be at King Faisal, Muwafaq Salty." Linda blinked. "Bless you." For a while we laughed hard enough that Mom had to take off her oxygen cannula and wipe her nose. Everyone stopped laughing when she did it, which annoyed her. "Oh, keep going," she said. It was almost a pleasant evening. Scott got up and checked the concentrator. "It's fine," she told him. "I'm not checking you. You're holding my tube. I'm checking gravity. Still working. So far." He crouched to adjust the line where it looped around the leg of her chair. His hand rested briefly against her ankle. I saw the tenderness and felt both relieved and replaced. That was an ugly feeling. I put more potato salad on my plate and pretended I needed it. After everyone left, I washed dishes while Mom sat at the table and Scott dried. It was our old formation from holiday dinners. Me at the sink, Scott beside me, Mom supervising a job she claimed nobody could do correctly. "You're using too much soap," she said. "It's soap," I said. "That doesn't make it free." Scott held up a plate. "This one has a spot, then wash it." I was talking to her. "I know." He put it back in the water. I scrubbed the spot. Mom watched us for another minute. "Promise me something," she said. "No," I said. "You don't know what it is. I know you. Don't come running home because I have one bad day." I kept my hands in the water. We've discussed this. We've argued around it. If you need me, I'm coming. Need is a slippery little word. People use it when they mean want. If your condition changes, it is going to change. That's why they call it a disease instead of a decorative pillow. Scott dried the plate again, slower this time. Mom looked at him. "And you will not call her every time I cough." "I don't call anybody. Your most consistent flaw." I shut off the water. If Scott says I should come home, I come home. She looked at him. "Don't say it." "Mom, I mean it. There are people depending on you. You're a person. I'm one person. That's not how I count." Her mouth tightened. "You lost a year after your father died. I didn't lose it. You turned down that assignment in Germany. You needed help. I needed grief. There wasn't anything you could do about that, but you stayed and tried anyway." Scott stared at the plate in his hands. After Dad died, Scott had disappeared into bars and bad decisions. I had handled insurance calls, house repairs, and the 1,000 official errands death produces. I told myself I stayed because I was strong enough. Mom remembered it as a sacrifice. Scott probably remembered it as an accusation. "I'm not 24 now," I said. "No, you've gotten bossier." "She really has," Scott said. I nudged him with my elbow and he almost dropped the plate. Mom smiled, but her eyes stayed on me. "You go do your job," she said. "Let us do ours." At the airport, she refused a wheelchair and then became furious. When walking from the parking garage, left her too breathless to speak. Scott wanted to pull the car around. She insisted on coming inside. "We're not reenacting a war movie at the curb," she said. "It would be an airport movie," Scott told her. "There are too many genres now." Denise stood beside him with one hand tucked into his. He pretended not to notice he was squeezing it. Mom hugged me first. She smelled like her lemon hand cream. The oxygen tubing pressed cold against my cheek. "Eat food," she whispered. "Excellent final guidance. Sleep, occasionally. Now you're being unreasonable." She released me and fixed the collar of my civilian coat. Scott stepped forward. For a second, we both seemed unsure whether we were people who hugged. Then he pulled me against him. "I've got her," he said into my hair. I wanted to tell him to prove it. Instead, I said, "I know." 3 nights after I arrived in Jordan, I called home from a prefab office while rain rattled the metal roof. Mom answered on the 6th ring. Before she could speak, I heard Scott in the background say, "Tell her everything's fine." Mom drew a thin breath. "Everything," she said, "is fine." "That sounded rehearsed," I said. "It was spontaneous," Mom replied. "Then why did he give you the line?" "Because your brother thinks I improvise too much." "I think you lie about symptoms," Scott called. I edit. "What happened?" Nothing happened. In the background, a cabinet door shut. Water ran. Scott said something I couldn't make out. I moved the phone to my other ear and watched rain stripe the small office window. Midnight in Jordan. 5 in the afternoon in Ohio. I had been awake for 22 hours, and the damp cold had worked its way through my boots. "Mom." I got winded going to the bathroom. How winded? The usual amount. Green, yellow, or red. Plaid. "Put Scott on." She sighed hard enough to make the cannula whistle. Scott came on. "She's fine. You're both using the word too much." Her oxygen dipped when she got up. It came back after she sat down. "What number?" 91. "That's low." It was 87 for about 30 seconds. I checked the tubing, turned her up according to the pulmonologist's instructions, and called the after-hours nurse. That stopped me. "You called? Do you want her name and blood type?" "What did she say?" "To monitor her, which I'm doing. She's at 93 now. Color's good. No chest pain. No fever." I sat back in the metal chair. It gave a sharp squeak. "You did everything right?" There was silence on his end. I could hear Mom asking if he had put too much water in the rice. Finally, Scott said, "You sound surprised." "I sound tired." "No, you sound surprised and tired." I said, "You did everything right. Like I passed an inspection. You want me to say you handled it wrong? I want you to talk to me like I'm her son, not a private reporting a tire pressure. I don't have privates reporting tire pressure. Congratulations on the promotion." "Scott." Mom raised her voice. "Tell her about the chicken." "I'm not telling her about the chicken." "What chicken?" I asked. "It's not relevant." "That depends on the chicken." Mom took the phone back. "Your brother tried to make me lemon chicken." "I made lemon chicken," Scott said. He used half a cup of lemon juice. The recipe said half a cup. Fresh lemon juice. He used the bottled kind. It comes from lemons. It comes from a factory where lemons go to die. I laughed. I didn't want to. It hurt behind my eyes. Mom lowered her voice. "See? We're managing." Managing was not the same as fine, but it was a word I could work with. "Put the oxygen reading in the log," I said. Scott groaned from somewhere near the stove. "You're on speaker," Mom told me. "Good. Put it in the log." "Yes, Sergeant," he said. Staff Sergeant. "See, Gail?" "She can hear." For the first month, I called every evening I could. By the second, our calls had settled into a rhythm built around everything nobody wanted to discuss. Mom told me about television commercials she found insulting. Scott reported oxygen levels as casually as weather. I asked what they had eaten, whether Celia had come, and when the next pulmonology appointment was. Denise occasionally answered from Mom's kitchen and gave me a cleaner version of the truth. "She's been more tired since Tuesday," Denise told me during one call. "I have been bored since Tuesday," Mom said behind her. "Her recovery time after walking is longer." "Whose side are you on?" Mom asked. "The lungs." Scott's voice floated in. "Nobody's on my side." "You burned the garlic bread," Denise said. "I was monitoring a patient." "She isn't your patient." Exactly why I burned the bread. Their voices layered over each other until I could close my eyes and locate everyone. Mom in her chair by the front window, Denise at the counter, Scott moving between the stove and the oxygen concentrator, touching both as if they might fail when he looked away. Sometimes, after the call ended, I sat with the dead phone against my ear. My workday began before sunrise. By 6, the operations floor smelled like coffee, dust, and overheated electronics. I tracked vehicle movements between bases, adjusted routes around weather and road closures, and reminded officers that changing a departure time on a slide did not magically move fuel or personnel. Sergeant First Class Benitez sat at the desk beside mine and had a gift for identifying trouble by the way someone entered a room. "You got family stuff," she said one morning without looking up from her monitor. "Everyone has family stuff. Yours has folders. I have one binder." That's how it starts. She was 46, divorced twice, and carried hot sauce in her cargo pocket. She did not ask questions unless she already knew enough to be dangerous. I slid a route packet toward her. "Convoy 7 needs a revised clearance." "You need sleep." "I slept." "You blinked for 20 minutes in a folding chair." "That's not sleep. That's a system reboot. I'm functional. Your left eye is twitching. It does that when I'm around you." "Good. Still got jokes." She took the packet and let the subject drop. That was one reason I trusted her. I could plan for a delayed convoy. I could shift drivers, move a maintenance window, request updated intelligence, and build a second route before anyone had finished complaining about the first. At home, one low oxygen reading could leave me staring at a green dot beside my mother's name, waiting for her to type. Her messages were brief. "Alive. Still alive. Your brother bought kale. Send help." Scott's were usually photographs. The pill organizer with the correct compartments empty. A repaired porch step. Mom asleep in her chair with her mouth open, followed immediately by, "Do not tell her I sent that." Then came a picture of the binder's medication page with a red circle around an error. "You have Tuesday dose listed at 8 p.m. Pharmacy says 6. I checked the scanned instructions." He was right. "Change it," I wrote. "Already did. Good catch." 3 dots appeared, vanished, then returned. "That all I get?" I stared at the screen. "What do you want? A certificate?" I sent it before I could reconsider. His reply came fast. "No, you probably have a template for those." He did not answer my next call. Mom said he was in the basement looking for a wrench. There was no reason to need a wrench at 8:30 at night, but I let it go. The following Sunday, Celia called me directly. That alone put me upright on my bunk. "What happened?" "Good morning to you too." "Celia, your mother refused her shower. She does that. She also told me I didn't need to come Thursday." I looked at the clock. 2:13 in the afternoon for me. 7:13 in Ohio. "Did she say why?" "Said Scott would be there." "Did Scott cancel the visit?" "She did." He backed her up. I pressed my fingers against my forehead. "Was there a medical reason?" "No, there was a Gale reason. She doesn't like needing me. That's why we made a schedule. Schedules don't make people like things. No, they make sure the things happen." Celia paused. "You two related?" "Unfortunately." "She's still the client, Mara. If she refuses, I can't force her. I understand that. But Scott is supposed to encourage the visits, not help her cancel them. Then talk to Scott." I called him before I could talk myself into waiting. He answered from his car. The turn signal clicked in the background. "She canceled one visit," he said after I explained. "Not dialysis. It starts with 1. "What starts?" "A pattern." "Oh, good. The pattern's back. This isn't about you. You're calling me on my way to work because Mom didn't want Celia in the house Thursday. Feels a little about me. She needs consistent help. She has consistent help. From you? Yes, from me. You're working 4 hours a day. And what happens when your hours increase?" I adjust. "How?" "I don't know yet, Mara. Maybe I'll consult the sacred binder." I stood and walked out of the sleeping area. The corridor was louder, but at least nobody had to listen to us. You promised you wouldn't cancel the visits. I didn't cancel it. Mom did. You supported it. She wanted one morning without a stranger timing how long she takes to put on socks. That isn't what Celia does. It's what Mom feels like she does. So the answer is to stop accepting help? The answer is to listen to her. She's sick. She's still an adult. I know that. Do you? Because from here it looks like you've turned her into a supply problem. I stopped walking. A soldier passed me carrying a box of printer paper and looked away with the exaggerated politeness of someone who had heard exactly enough. I hired Celia so you wouldn't have to carry everything, I said. You hired Celia so you could feel better about leaving. The corridor seemed to narrow. Scott's turn signal stopped clicking. His voice softened, but not enough. That came out wrong. No. It came out very clearly. Mara, put Thursday back on the schedule. I'll talk to Mom. No, put it back. You don't command me. Then act like I don't have to. He hung up. For the rest of the day, I moved vehicles through 3 countries without losing one. I rerouted a delayed convoy around a flash flood warning, found a replacement driver for a sergeant with food poisoning, and corrected a fuel request that had been submitted in liters where the system expected gallons. At 2200, Scott sent a message. Thursday restored. You're welcome. I typed 6 different replies and deleted them all. The next call home was stiff enough to stand by itself. Mom told me Celia had come and forced her to watch a cooking show with a man who wore too many bracelets. Scott confirmed the appointment as if reading from a statement. I thanked him. He said, "Copy that." Denise finally took the phone onto the back porch. Cold air hissed across the microphone. "You two need to stop," she said. He canceled Mom's care. Gail canceled it. He helped. Yes. And then he put it back. After I called, "Mara, he is there every day." I know, you say that like it's a fact you memorized. I leaned against the office wall. What do you want from me? I want you to understand he's scared. So am I. I know. You get efficient when you're scared. Scott gets defensive. Gail gets funny. It's a terrible little family band. Despite myself, I smiled. Denise lowered her voice. He's doing a good job. I told him that. You told him he did everything right during an oxygen drop. That's not the same thing. What's the difference? You really don't know? Through the back door behind her, I heard Mom laugh at something Scott said. The sound traveled 6,000 miles and arrived too late for me to be part of it. I have to go, I said. Mara, I'm on shift. That was true in 4 minutes. Before I disconnected, Denise said, "Your mother misses you." So does he. Scott sent no photographs for 9 days. On the 10th, my phone lit up while I was eating powdered eggs in the dining facility. The picture showed a new wooden handrail installed beside Mom's front steps. It was sanded smooth, stained dark, and anchored into the brick. Mom stood beside it wearing the blue-gray sweater and giving the camera a thumbs down. Underneath, Scott had written, "Client dissatisfied. Used it anyway." I studied the picture until Benitez reached across the table and stole my unopened orange juice. "Family stuff?" she asked. I typed carefully. "Looks solid. Nice work." Scott reacted with a thumbs up. Then another message appeared. Pulmonology moved her appointment to Friday. Denise is taking her. I have work. I checked my calendar even though I already knew. Friday? What time? Benitez poked her straw through my juice. Trouble? I looked at the photograph again. Mom's smile, Scott's handrail, the oxygen tube disappearing beneath the sweater. "No," I said. "Everything's fine." The pulmonologist did not use the word fine. Denise called me from the hospital parking garage while Mom sat in the passenger seat complaining about the price of parking. "Her resting oxygen requirement is going up," Denise said. "How much?" 3 liters at rest, 4 with activity. It was 2 and 3. Yes. When did that change? There was a pause just long enough to answer the question. Gradually. How gradually? Mom's voice cut through the speaker. "Tell her they stole $9 from me." "Gail, I'm talking. I know. I'm improving it." Denise lowered her voice. She's been using 3 more, often for about 2 weeks. I got up from my desk and carried the phone into the narrow space beside the equipment lockers. The operations floor was busy, screens glowing with vehicle locations and weather updates, but all I could see was the blue tab in the binder 6,000 miles away. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because it wasn't a sudden change. That isn't an answer. It's the answer I have. What did the doctor say? Her imaging shows progression. No infection, no acute event. They're adjusting medication and want another pulmonary function test. How soon? 2 weeks. And if her oxygen drops? The same thresholds we already have. Mom spoke louder. Also, I'm supposed to conserve energy. You could start by not arguing from the passenger seat, Denise told her. That's emotional energy. Different account. I closed my eyes. Put me on speaker. You already are, Mom said. Then listen. I'm calling tonight, and I want every medication change in front of you. Oh, good. A conference. Mom, I'll be there. And Scott needs to know. He knows, Denise said. I texted him from the exam room. Did he answer? No. Mom shifted in the car. Vinyl creaked under her. He's working, Mara. He asked to be the point person. He is not a point. He is a person. People sometimes have jobs. The sentence hit exactly where she intended it to. I looked through the open doorway toward my desk. Benitez had moved into my chair and was answering a lieutenant's question while pointing at my monitor. I have to get back. Then get back, Mom said, gentler. I'm not dying in the parking garage. Don't say that, I'm not. You know what I mean, I do. That was the problem. She always did. Scott called 7 hours later when I was trying to sleep. You talked to Denise, he said. Yes. She gave you the whole rundown? Eventually. What does that mean? It means I had to ask when Mom's oxygen changed. I didn't realize you needed a press release every time she turned the knob. I rolled onto my back. The bunk above mine was close enough that I could see a strip of old tape stuck to the metal frame. An increase in baseline oxygen is important. I know. Then why didn't you tell me? Because Denise said it wasn't urgent. Because Mom said not to turn it into a thing. Because I worked 32 hours this week and spent 2 nights fixing a toilet that your mother insisted was making a suspicious face. Pick one. 32 hours? That's what you heard? You said the job was part-time. It is. That's almost full-time. Thank you. I've also discovered numbers. Who's with Mom while you're at work? Celia, Linda, Denise. Sometimes, and I know this will terrify you, Mom is with Mom. I sat up and pulled the blanket around my shoulders. You're getting defensive. You're conducting an inquiry from another continent. I'm trying to understand what's happening. No, you're trying to find the exact place where I failed to report. His voice had that dry edge it got when he was tired enough to stop hiding his anger. I made myself count to 3. How is she really? The question changed him. I heard him exhale. She gets winded getting dressed. She won't sit down to put on her pants because she says that's how old people do it. She is 71. Tell her that. I have. She hides the cannula under her clothes when Linda comes over because she thinks it looks less medical. That can pinch the tubing. I know. I fixed it. Okay. She's eating less. How much less? Mara. Sorry. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said, the doctor told her progression. She asked whether that meant she could stop buying green bananas. I laughed quietly. She's used that joke before. I know. It was better the first time. Most of her material is. She told it like she'd just invented it. The space between us softened. Not much. Enough. Thank you for the handrail, I said. Seemed necessary. It looks good. Denise picked the stain. You installed it. I did. Mom's using it. When she thinks nobody sees, that counts. Yeah. His voice went thin on the last word. I held the phone tighter. You okay? Just tired. You need to keep Celia's hours. I am. You can add evenings. I can cover it. I don't want your money. It isn't a judgment. Everything you do feels like one. Before I could answer, he said he had to get up early and disconnected. The medication conference went badly. Mom could not find the updated list. Scott said it was behind the green tab. She said the binder had been moved. He said she had moved it. She accused him of using a tone. He accused her of inventing tones as a hobby. They found the binder under a stack of mail on the dining room chair. I placed it there temporarily, Mom said. 3 days ago, Scott said. Temporary is not a measurement. I listened through the phone while they argued over whether the new pill caused nausea, dizziness, or general disagreeableness, which Mom claimed was pre-existing. By the end, I knew the dosage, but not whether either of them had heard a word I said. I'll type a clean list and email it, I told Scott. I already updated the page. You just said you couldn't find it. Mom couldn't find the binder. I found the binder, then send me a picture. He made a sound through his nose. Please, I added. The picture arrived 2 minutes later. His handwriting filled the margin beside the medication name. New dose, date, doctor's initials, follow-up time. He had also drawn a small skull beside the side effect warning. What is that? I asked. Visual aid. Remove it. Can't. Ink. Mom leaned toward the phone. I like the skull. Of course you do. The pulmonary function test was worse than the previous one. Not catastrophically worse, Denise said. Noticeably worse. Mom insisted those were emotional words masquerading as medical ones. I began waking at odd hours and checking my phone. If there was no message, I assumed someone had chosen not to send one. If Scott wrote that Mom had eaten soup, I wondered how much. If he said she had slept well, I wondered whether he knew because he had stayed all night. He had. I found out by accident when I called at 4 a.m. Ohio time, and he answered from her living room. Why are you awake? I asked. I could ask you the same thing. It's 11 here. Then your answer is less interesting. Behind him, the oxygen concentrator hummed. The television was on low. A commercial promised relief from joint pain through a copper-infused sleeve. Is Mom okay? She had a coughing fit. How bad? Bad enough. Did you call the nurse? She said to increase oxygen and monitor. It passed. Is she sleeping? Sort of. Where are you? On the couch. I leaned forward on the bench outside the dining facility. The night air still held the day's heat. Somewhere beyond the concrete barriers, a truck shifted gears. You should have called me. At 6 a.m. your time? Yes. To do what? I had no good answer. Scott lowered his voice. She got scared. She said that. No. How do you know? Because she held my hand. The image was so intimate I resented him for giving it to me. Then I resented myself. Was she conscious the whole time? Yes. Any blue around her lips? No. Chest pain? No. Did she, Mara? I stopped. He sounded exhausted, but not angry. I know what red looks like, he said. This was yellow. An ugly yellow, but yellow. Okay. She's okay. Okay. Neither of us hung up. Through his end, I heard Mom cough once. Scott was moving before the second cough came. The phone rustled against fabric, then landed somewhere hard. Easy, he said to her. Don't talk. Just breathe. I know how, Mom rasped. You're making a strong argument. Otherwise, I need water. Small sip. I listened to the sounds I could not see. A glass lifted. The concentrator changed pitch. Scott's voice stayed low and irritatingly normal. Better? A pause. Yes. Liar. Somewhat. I'll accept somewhat. He picked the phone back up several minutes later. We're good. You handled that well. Don't grade me. I'm not. You are. You can't help it. I looked across the dark compound. Floodlights caught dust in the air, each particle suspended for a second before disappearing. I'm glad you're there, I said. Scott went quiet. Then Mom called from the chair. Ask her if she has met a prince. She wants to know if you've met a prince. This isn't a fairy tale. She thinks Jordan has princes. Jordan does have a crown prince. Scott relayed that. Mom said, see? Ask if he's available. I'm 39. Old enough to know better, she called. Scott laughed, and I did too. For a few minutes, we were almost ourselves. After that night, he sent more information. Not everything, but enough that I stopped treating every message as a puzzle. He told me when Mom slept badly. He recorded oxygen changes in the binder. He even asked whether I wanted to video into her next appointment. I began believing we might be able to do this. Then Mom called me without him. Her face filled my screen too closely, one eye and half her forehead. "Move the phone back," I said. I look better blurred. "You look like a hostage. Your brother went to the store." She adjusted the angle. The living room appeared behind her. The blue-gray sweater hung over the back of a chair. The binder sat on the end table where it belonged. Mom smiled. "I wanted you to myself." We talked about nothing. My food. Her neighbor's wind chimes. A lieutenant who had used the phrase circle back 4 times in one meeting. Then her phone slid sideways. She reached for it and missed. By the time she caught it, she was breathing through her open mouth. "Mom." "I'm fine, you're not." I stood up too fast. "Sit down, I am sitting. Where's your pulse oximeter?" "Somewhere." "Where?" She looked off screen. "Mom." Her breath snagged. She tried to hide it with a cough. The image froze for half a second, then returned. "Call Scott," I said. "He'll be home soon." "How soon?" "Mara, don't make this into—" The call went black. I called back immediately. No answer. I called Scott. It rang until his voicemail picked up. I called again, watching the green dot beside his name as if I could force it to move. On the 3rd call, he answered. "What?" "Get home. I'm 3 blocks away. She can't catch her breath. I'm pulling in now." A car door slammed through the phone. "Stay on with me. I've got her. Scott, I said I've got her." He did not hang up. I heard the back door open, his footsteps cross the kitchen, and my mother say his name with naked relief. That sound followed me long after her breathing steadied. Scott moved through the house faster than I had ever heard him move. "Mom, look at me." "I am looking." "No, you're looking past me." "Mara, what was her last number?" She couldn't find the oximeter. "It's on the table." Plastic knocked against wood. Mom's breathing rasped close to the phone. 84, Scott said. "Turn her up and call 911. I'm calling Denise. Call 911. Wait, Scott." Her tubes pinched. There was a rustle, then the concentrator's hum changed. 87, he said. 89. Call anyway. Mom, slow breath. That's it. 91. I gripped the edge of my desk. Scott. 93. Mom coughed. You both need quieter voices. The relief made me angry. You need an ambulance, I told her. I need pants. You're wearing pants. Outside pants. Scott laughed once, breathlessly. Denise arrived before the paramedics would have. She listened to Mom's chest, checked her temperature, called the pulmonologist's office, and agreed to stay until they heard back. I disliked every part of that arrangement except the fact that Mom's oxygen held at 93. You should still have her evaluated, I said. Denise took the phone into the kitchen. I would if her saturation hadn't recovered or if she had chest pain, fever, confusion, any new symptom. This looks like exertion plus a kinked line. She almost passed out. Yes. That sounds new. It isn't entirely new. The words landed like a dropped tray. What does that mean? It means she has had milder episodes. How many? I don't know. You're a respiratory therapist. I'm also not here 24 hours a day. Who is? The answer was nobody. Denise let the silence sit. Her disease is progressing, she said. You need to hear that without turning it into somebody's failure. I know what progression means. You know what the word means. I'm not sure you've accepted what it means at home. I looked across the operations floor. A route map glowed on the central display. Little icons marked vehicles moving exactly where they were supposed to move. I'm requesting emergency leave. Mara, I should be there. That's between you and your command. No, it's between me and my mother. Then talk to her after she's rested. I started the request before calling her. The form was shorter than the deferment paperwork she had torn and somehow harder to complete. Nature of emergency, current medical status, requested duration, travel requirements. I filled each box with language designed to make fear legible to people who had never met Gail Vance. Benitez found me in the office after midnight. "You're supposed to be off shift," she said. "I need the printer. You have one in the admin building. It's jammed." She looked at the paper in my hand. "You going home?" "I'm requesting it." "Good." I didn't ask for an opinion. I know. That's why mine was free. She sat on the corner of the desk and handed me a packet of crackers from her pocket. "I'm not hungry. Neither are these. Eat them anyway." I opened the packet mostly so she would leave me alone. Benitez glanced at the form, but not long enough to read it. "My sister called me from my dad's hospital once," she said. "Told me not to come because there was nothing I could do. What did you do?" "Went home." "Was there anything you could do?" "No." "Did that make it the right decision?" "No." She slid off the desk. "That's the only wisdom I have. It's not very useful. It's honest. Useful wisdom usually isn't." The next morning, my request was ready for medical verification. The Red Cross could confirm the situation through Mom's doctor, but someone at home had to cooperate. Mom refused. She called while I was walking from the dining facility with coffee in one hand and a folder under the other arm. "You are not coming home," she said. "Good morning. It is 11 at night. Then good evening. Denise told me what you're doing. Denise talks too much. Only when necessary." I set my coffee on a concrete barrier. "You nearly lost consciousness." "I did not." "You dropped the phone." "The phone is slippery." "You were at 84. For 1 minute, because the tube was caught." "That can happen again." "Then we will uncaught it again." That isn't a word. It communicated the idea. The folder under my arm began to slide. I caught it against my hip. "I have 6 weeks until scheduled leave." "Exactly. That's too long." "No, it's 6 weeks." "Mom." Her voice softened, which scared me more than the argument. "The new medication hasn't had time to work. Is it working?" "I think so." "That isn't what I asked." "Yes." She said it quickly. I stared at the ground between my boots. Fine dust had collected in the cracks. "Put Scott on. He's not here. Where is he?" "Work." "You're alone?" "Celia is coming." "When?" "Soon." "What time?" "Mara, stop." My hand tightened around the phone. "I watched you stop breathing." "No, you watched me have trouble breathing." "What distinction are you trying to make? The one between dying and living badly?" Neither of us spoke. A forklift beeped somewhere behind me. Mom continued, "Quieter now. This is what it looks like. It is going to be ugly sometimes. I am not asking you to enjoy that. I can come home." "Yes. You can also stay there and finish what you started. This isn't about finishing. It is to me. You don't get to decide for everyone. I get to decide for me. And if you're making the decision because you think I'll resent you, oh, you'll resent me either way. That's motherhood." I almost laughed. She heard it in my breath. 6 weeks, she said. "Your regular leave is already scheduled. The medication will have had time to work. We'll know more. And if something happens before then, something is always happening. If something serious happens, Scott will tell you." That was not the answer I wanted, but she had chosen it carefully. "He promised," she added. I picked up my coffee. It had already gone lukewarm. "I need you to authorize the medical verification." "No, I can request without it. Then I'll tell them you're being dramatic." "You wouldn't. Try me." She would. Gail could make a federal emergency verification sound like an argument over coupons. "Celia needs to keep every scheduled visit," I said. "Fine. Not your version of fine. I surrender completely to the calendar. Scott needs to update me after appointments." "Yes. And you do not hide symptoms." She paused. "Mom, I will hide fewer symptoms." "All symptoms. Fewer. That's not a compromise. It is from my side." I rubbed my forehead. 6 weeks, she repeated. 6 weeks. "I love you." It was rare for her to say it in the middle of an argument. In our family, love usually entered carrying a grocery bag or an insult. "I love you too. Eat something." I just did. Crackers aren't food. I looked at the empty wrapper in my hand. How do you know I ate crackers? You sound salty. She hung up before I could answer. I did not withdraw the request immediately. For 2 days, it sat open while I looked for a reason to complete it. Mom's oxygen remained stable. Celia attended both scheduled visits. Denise reported that the medication could take weeks to show an effect. Scott answered every question with such careful accuracy that I could hear his irritation between the words. I called him after Mom went to bed. "You think I should come home?" I asked. There was a long pause. I could hear dishes being placed in a rack. "I think she doesn't want you to." "That isn't what I asked." "I know. What do you think?" He ran water for a few seconds, then shut it off. "I think she had a bad episode. She's had more than one. Not that bad." "How often?" "A few times she got lightheaded, never into the 80s. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because she recovered." "Scott, because every time something changes, you start talking like a building alarm. I'm trying to make a decision, so make one. I'm asking for your help. That's new." I let the insult pass. "If you say come home, I come home." He did not answer. "Scott, she will hate me. She'll get over it." "You don't know that." "Yes, I do." "No, Mara. You know the version of her that forgives you because you leave again." That struck so cleanly I could not respond. He sighed. "I'm sorry." "Stop saying things you mean and apologizing for them." "Fine. I won't apologize. Do you want me home?" His voice dropped. "Yes." The word was so quiet I nearly missed it. I sat down on the edge of my bunk. "Then why are we arguing?" "Because wanting you home and thinking you should come home are different things. Mom said the same thing about need and want. She's exhausting. You both are." He gave a small laugh. Then his breathing changed. "What?" "Nothing." "What aren't you saying?" He was silent long enough that I knew there was something. "The medication makes her nauseated," he said. "She skipped dinner 3 nights this week. Denise said she was eating less. She eats when Denise is there." "What did the doctor say?" "Take it with food. Small meals. And we're doing that. Is it helping?" "I don't know yet. Mom told me the medication was working. She wants it to be. That's not the same." "No, there it was. The thing none of us could organize. You should have told me." "I'm telling you now, after I dragged it out of you. You don't understand what it's like here." "Then help me understand." She watches my face every time she coughs. If I look worried, she gets mad. If I don't look worried, she says I'm not paying attention. Linda brings casseroles and looks at me like I'm already in mourning. Denise uses her calm hospital voice, which is somehow worse. Then you call and ask for numbers because numbers are the only part you trust. What should I ask? I don't know. Ask what she laughed at. Ask whether she beat me at cards. Ask something that doesn't make this house feel like a waiting room. I looked at the unfinished leave request beside me. What did she laugh at? He went quiet. "Today?" "Today. I dropped a jar of pickles. That's not funny. It bounced. The glass jar bounced once. Then it broke. I pictured Mom at the kitchen table, delighted by physics. Did she beat you at cards? She cheats. That's a yes, by 30 points. We talked for another 10 minutes. Not about oxygen. The next morning, I closed the request. Benitez watched me file the paperwork in my desk drawer. "You staying?" she asked. "For 6 weeks." She nodded once. I wanted her to tell me I had made the correct decision. Instead, she handed me a revised convoy schedule. That night, Scott sent a photograph of Mom at the dining room table holding 4 aces. "Cheater," he wrote. Behind her, the binder was open to the yellow tab. Mom was smiling. Her dinner plate was full. She had arranged the food to look eaten. I noticed because the mashed potatoes were spread thin across the plate, without any fork marks, and the chicken had been cut into 4 pieces, but not moved. When I asked Scott about it, he said she ate after he took the picture. When I asked Mom, she said photographs were unreliable witnesses. The medication was not working. Nobody announced that. It became true by accumulation. Mom stopped answering calls from the living room because crossing the room to reach the phone took too long. Scott bought 3 cordless handsets and placed them within reach of her chair, her bed, and the bathroom. She accused him of turning the house into a customer service center. Her voice changed. The words were still sharp, but the air beneath them thinned. One evening, I called while she and Scott were watching a game show. "Category is famous generals," she said. "You hate military questions. I hate when the show is wrong. Is it wrong? Not yet. Give it time," a contestant answered Patton. Mom made a disgusted sound. Too obvious. It was the correct answer. That doesn't make it good. Scott came on the line. She ate half a grilled cheese. "3/4, Mom said. I threw away half. You can't measure a triangle. I can measure garbage." "You went through the trash?" I asked. "He is becoming unstable," Mom said. Scott lowered his voice. "She's down 6 pounds. How long? Since the pulmonologist? That was 5 weeks ago." "I know." "What did the doctors say?" "High-calorie small meals, nutrition shakes. She hates them." "They taste like vanilla drywall," Mom called. "You've never eaten drywall. I raised 2 children. I've eaten things off the floor." Scott moved farther from the television. "Denise thinks we should ask about hospice support." The word struck hard enough that I turned away from the people crossing the operations floor. Does Mom know? She heard us talking. And she asked whether hospice workers know how to play gin. That doesn't tell me what she thinks. It's usually the best you get. My leave started in 8 days. I had a flight itinerary folded in my wallet and another copy in my email. I would travel through Germany, land in Baltimore, connect to Columbus, and rent a car. Mom had instructed me not to tell Aunt Linda the arrival time because Linda would bring balloons. 8 days had seemed manageable until Scott said hospice. "Do I need to move the flight?" He looked toward the living room. The game show audience applauded. "I don't think so. You don't sound sure. I'm not sure about anything anymore." "Scott." "She made me promise not to tell you to come early. She doesn't get to make that promise for you. Apparently she does." I lowered my voice. "You told me you wanted me home." "I do." "Then say it." "What, so you can blame me if she gets mad?" "I won't blame you. You blame people like breathing." The second he said it, we both heard the cruelty. My mouth went dry. Scott whispered, "That was cheap." "Yes. I'm sorry. Is the medication helping at all?" "No." The answer came without hesitation. "Mom told me it was. She lied, and you backed her up. I said we didn't know yet. You knew. I knew she wanted 6 weeks. You let me close the request. You made the decision, with bad information, with the information we had." "No, with the information you gave me." His voice sharpened. "I am not responsible for every choice you make over there. I asked you directly, and I said I wanted you home. You also said I should stay, because Mom asked me to. You promised me the truth. I promised a lot of things. That doesn't make this one optional." He went quiet. From the television, Mom shouted an answer before the contestant. Scott said, 8 days, Mara." I looked at my printed itinerary tucked beneath the edge of the keyboard. "Put her on." He carried the phone into the living room. Mom answered brightly. "The woman from Wisconsin doesn't know Eisenhower. Do you need me to come home now?" Silence replaced the game show. Scott must have muted it. "Mara, yes or no? You are already coming home. In 8 days. And the earth will continue turning until then. The medication isn't working." She sighed. "Scott has a weak mind. He has eyes." "So do I." "Then look at what's happening." "I look at it all day. That stopped me." Her voice was tired when she continued. "I wake up and look at it. I put on socks and look at it. I drag that ridiculous tube into the bathroom and look at it. You get to look away sometimes. Let me give you that. I don't want it. You have it anyway. What if 8 days is too long? What if you get hit by a bus tomorrow? There aren't many buses here." "Then something military." "I don't know." "A hostile filing cabinet." "Mom, you cannot bargain with the future by arriving early." "No, but I can be there." "For what?" "For you." She breathed for several seconds before answering. I know. I pressed my thumb into my eyebrow until light flashed behind my eye. Tell me to come. I will see you next Thursday. Tell me. I will see you next Thursday, and you will complain about my refrigerator, and I will make you eat the pudding your brother keeps buying. Mom. 8 days. She unmuted the television. The audience came back laughing. Scott reduced Celia's visits without telling me. I learned when I called on a Tuesday and Mom said Celia would not be there until Friday. She comes Tuesdays, I said. Not anymore. Since when? Since we changed it. Who is we? There was a small pause. Your brother and I. I called him at work. He answered in a whisper. I can't do this now. You cut Celia's hours. Mom doesn't need help watching television. She needs help bathing. I do it. The image arrived before I could stop it. Scott standing outside the bathroom, Mom furious and vulnerable behind the door. She agreed to that? She wears a robe. I help her in and wait outside the shower. What if she falls? I'm right there. You're her son. Thanks for the update. That isn't what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. You should not have changed the schedule. She asked me. You keep using that as cover, and you keep acting like her choices only count when they match yours. 3 visits was the plan. The plan was made when she could walk to the kitchen. That means she needs more help, not less. She doesn't want strangers touching her. Celia isn't a stranger. She is when you're naked. I lowered my voice. You cannot do everything. I'm doing it. For how long? 8 more days, apparently. There was bitterness in it. Not just anger at me. He was counting toward my arrival like a prisoner marking a wall. Restore the visits. No, Scott, you don't get to order me around because you feel guilty. I don't feel guilty. He laughed. It was an ugly sound. Then why do you call 6 times a day? I call twice. You call me. You call Mom. You call Denise. You text Celia. You had Linda check whether there was food in the refrigerator. I asked Linda how Mom was eating. You inspected the refrigerator through a proxy, she offered. You are everywhere, except here. The words passed straight through me. A door opened near him. Someone asked if he was coming back. I have to go, he said. Restore Tuesday. I said no. I'm home in 7 days. Great. You can run the whole operation yourself. He hung up. Mom called me later and told me to leave him alone. He's exhausted, she said. Then he needs Celia. He needs people to stop telling him he needs help. That's not how exhaustion works. He is proud. So am I. It's not a treatment plan. He is doing things neither of you expected him to do. I know that. Do you? The same question Scott had asked at the dining room table months earlier. I know he is taking good care of you. He is. I also know he's making bad decisions because he wants the care to be his. Mom did not answer. That told me enough. Put Celia back on Tuesday. It was my decision. It was both of you. You don't know everything. Then tell me. She coughed, a dry scraping sound. When she recovered, she said, Come home Thursday. It was the closest she would come to asking. 2 days later, I entered a scheduled communications blackout. A convoy movement required continuous coordination, and personal devices were secured for the operation. I warned Mom during our last call. 24 hours? She asked. Probably less. What if I need to discuss your brother's cooking? Document the violation. He's making meatloaf. Photograph it before touching. Why? For identification. Scott took the phone. She's been better today. Actually better? Actually, numbers? 94 at rest, 90 with activity, ate some eggs. Good. She beat me at cards. She cheats. I checked her sleeves. Amateur. He laughed, but it faded quickly. You're home in 5 days, he said. 5 days. There was noise behind him, Mom asking where her red sweater was. Hall closet, I said. Scott repeated it. She says no. Linen closet. He checked. You're disturbing, he said. Thank you. When the blackout began, I placed my phone in the secured locker. While I was gone, Mom and Scott argued. I learned later that it started over a shower. He wanted to help. She wanted Celia restored to the schedule. He accused her of choosing my system after he had given up months of his life. She accused him of needing her illness to prove something. He said Mara gets to leave and still be the good daughter. Mom told him I had offered to stay. He said she had never let me fail the way she let him fail. She told him love was not a scoreboard. He left after checking her oxygen, setting water beside her chair, and placing her phone within reach. He said he needed one night in his own bed. He said she told him to go. During the blackout, Gail called me. She spoke for 1 minute and 47 seconds. Then, sometime before dawn in Ohio, she called 911 herself. When I opened the locker 23 hours later, my phone showed 17 missed calls. There were 6 from Scott, 4 from Denise, 3 from Aunt Linda, 2 from an unknown hospital number, 1 from Celia, and 1 from Mom. Beneath them was a single voicemail. I called Scott before listening to it. He answered on the first ring. "Where were you? What happened? Where were you, Mara? I told you." Communications blackout. I called 17 times. I just got my phone. What happened? He made a sound that was either a breath or a sob. "She's in the hospital." My knees weakened. I sat on the concrete floor beside the lockers. "Which hospital?" "Miami Valley." "ICU?" "Yes." "What happened?" "I don't know." She called 911 around 4. By the time I got here, they had her on BiPAP. "Is she conscious?" "Sometimes." What are they saying? That it's an acute exacerbation. They're treating for infection, giving her steroids. Nobody will say anything definite. "Put Denise on. She's talking to the doctor." Then put the doctor on. "He's with another patient." "Scott, stop telling me who I can't talk to and tell me what's happening. I wasn't there." The words cracked open. "What?" "I wasn't there when she called." "Where were you?" "Home." "You were at her house." "No, my home." I stared at the floor. Dust lined the edge of the locker bank in a thin brown seam. "You left her alone?" "We had a fight." "You left her overnight?" "She told me to go." "You told me she was better." "She was. You said 94. She was 94. What did you miss?" "I don't know." His voice rose. "I don't know, Mara. She was fine when I left." There it was again. That ruined word. "Did she fall?" "No." "Was the oxygen running?" "Yes." "Did the power go out?" "No." "Then what happened?" I said I don't know. Someone spoke behind him. Scott answered, then came back. "Denise is here. Put her on. Mara, put her on." Denise's voice was calm, but the hospital moved around it. Wheels, announcements, a monitor pulsing somewhere too close. "Her blood gases are poor," she said. "The BiPAP is helping. They're trying to avoid intubation. Avoid or she doesn't want it. Both. Can she speak? Not with the mask. Can she hear? Yes. I'm coming." "I know. I need a medical contact for emergency leave. I'll handle it. Have the doctor's name, unit number, and callback ready. I'll send everything." Put the phone near her. "Mara, listen to the voicemail first." My eyes moved to the notification on the screen. 1 minute, 47 seconds. Why? Just listen. Denise disconnected. For several seconds, I remained on the floor with my thumb above the message. Then I pressed play. The recording began with the oxygen concentrator. That steady mechanical breath had been behind so many calls that, for 1 second, my body believed she was still sitting in her living room. "Mara, honey, if Scott tells them you left me, don't you dare carry that for him." Her voice was weak but clear. "I asked you to go. I tore up those papers, remember? You tried to stay and I would not let you. That was my choice. Scott stood in my kitchen and promised me he would not make you guilty for listening to me." She paused. Air hissed through the cannula. "He is tired and he is scared, and he has done more for me than either of us knew he could. Don't take that away from him, but pain makes him keep score. It always has. He thinks I trusted you more. Maybe sometimes I did. That is one of my failures, not yours." Another pause. I'm sorry you two got a sick mother who still thinks she can manage everybody. She drew a breath that shuddered on the way in. Finish your work. Come Thursday, like we planned. If I'm being dramatic tonight, you can complain about it in person. If I'm not... Her voice stopped. I heard fabric move. The concentrator continued. When she spoke again, the humor was gone. If he tells them you chose the army over me, play this. I asked you to go. He promised. I love you, both of you, even when you make it difficult. A soft click ended the message. I listened to the silence after it until the phone returned to the screen. Then I was on my feet. The next hours happened in the hard, bright order emergencies demand. Get the verification, submit the request, secure coverage, pack. Find the earliest flight. Nobody rescued me. Nobody saluted, cleared a runway, or delivered a speech about sacrifice. Benitez took my shift without making me ask twice. A specialist from admin corrected a code on the leave form. My commander signed it between 2 meetings and told me to keep him updated. Ordinary people moved one practical object at a time. Benitez packed my loose toiletries while I changed clothes. You got your passport? She asked. Yes. Orders? Yes. Phone charger? I checked the side pocket. Yes. Voicemail saved? My hand stopped. She did not know what it contained. She only knew I had been sitting on the floor when she found me. Yes, send yourself a copy. I don't need... Send it. I emailed the audio file to myself. At the terminal, my first flight was delayed 40 minutes because of a maintenance issue. I stood at the counter while an airline employee explained that the aircraft could not leave without a functioning sensor. I understand, I said. He looked surprised. I understood perfectly. A broken system did not repair itself because my mother might be dying. That was the insult built into reality. It continued obeying its own rules. Scott did not answer my calls. Denise sent updates. Stable for now. Still on BiPAP. Doctor says next 12 hours are important. Aunt Linda texted that she had brought Mom's robe and lotion to the hospital. Then she asked whether Jordan used the same electrical outlets because she had found Mom's phone charger, but did not know whether mine would work. I told her I had a charger. She replied, I know, just checking. On the flight to Germany, I could not sleep. The man beside me watched a comedy with the subtitles on. People on the screen argued in a restaurant and forgave each other before dessert. I opened Mom's voicemail, saw the waveform, and closed it without pressing play. In Germany, I called the ICU. A nurse held the phone near Mom's bed. Mom, it's me. The BiPAP machine pushed air in a forceful rhythm. I'm on my way. I'm in Germany. I'll be in Ohio tonight. No answer. The nurse said. She squeezed my hand. I did not know whether that was true. Tell her Thursday came early, I said. The nurse repeated it. Another squeeze, supposedly. When Scott finally called, I was waiting to board for Baltimore. How is she? Worse. He sounded emptied out. Define worse. Her pressure's dropping. The doctor wants to know if we're sure about not intubating. We're sure. She could recover with it. She said she didn't want to be on a ventilator. She said a lot of things before she couldn't breathe. She was clear. You're not here. That doesn't change what she said. It changes how easy it is for you to say it. I closed my eyes. People stood around me holding coffees and neck pillows. A woman nearby argued quietly with someone about a missed connection. Did you listen to her voicemail? I asked. Scott went silent. Denise heard it, he said. That wasn't the question. I don't want to talk about that now. She talked about you. Of course she did. She said you took care of her. Stop. She said not to take that away from you. I said stop. His voice broke. I let the silence hold him. Then I said, I'm not taking it away. You don't get to give it. No, I don't. The gate agent announced pre-boarding. My flight's boarding. Okay, I'll call from Baltimore. He whispered, hurry. The flight was 8 hours. Over the Atlantic, time became physical. Every minute was a locked door. I watched the flight map crawl west while strangers slept under thin blue blankets. When we landed, I had 11 messages. Mom's blood pressure had fallen again. The doctor had spoken with Scott and Denise. They were keeping her comfortable. Aunt Linda had arrived. Celia had come and sat for 20 minutes before leaving because, according to Linda, she said this belongs to you all. My connection to Columbus had already begun boarding at another concourse. I ran. I had spent years correcting soldiers who ran through terminals in uniform. Don't draw attention. Don't lose your bag. Don't become the emergency. I ran anyway. At the gate, the door was closed. The agent looked at my boarding pass and shook her head. The flight has pushed back. I can see it. I'm sorry. When's the next one? 2 hours and 15 minutes. I need another airport. Dayton, Cincinnati, Cleveland. She searched. Nothing got me there faster. I called Denise. She's still with us, she said. Put the phone near her. This time there was no BiPAP rhythm, only quieter oxygen and the small sounds of a hospital room. Mom, I said, I missed the connection. I'm still coming. My voice trembled, so I stopped speaking. There were things I could have said. Thank you. I'm sorry. I knew where the blue sweater was. I remembered the night Dad died and how she sat at the kitchen table until sunrise because the bedroom felt disloyal. What came out was Scott used bottled lemon juice in the chicken. Someone near her bed laughed and cried at the same time. I love you, I said. You don't have to wait for me. I regretted it immediately. I wanted her to wait. The next flight landed in Columbus after midnight. My rental reservation had been canceled because I was late, so I took the first rideshare that accepted the trip to Dayton. The driver was named Kevin. He had a pine tree air freshener hanging from the mirror and a talk radio program playing too softly to understand. Halfway there, Denise called. I knew before I answered. She's gone, she said. The dashboard clock read 1:18. How long? Just now. I looked at the highway lights blurring past. How long, Denise? Maybe a minute. I had missed her by 40 minutes. At the hospital, Aunt Linda met me near the elevators and folded herself around me. She smelled like the same rose perfume she had worn to Dad's funeral. I could not hug her back. Scott stood outside Mom's room with both hands in his pockets. His beard had grown uneven. There was a dark stain on the front of his shirt, probably coffee. For a moment, he looked like my brother. Then he looked at the bag over my shoulder. You always were good at showing up after the work was done, he said. I walked past him into the room. My mother was still warm. That surprised me, though I do not know what I expected 40 minutes to do. The hospital had removed most of the equipment. A clear tube rested beneath her nose, even though the oxygen no longer mattered. Her hands lay on top of the blanket, one curled slightly as if she had forgotten what she meant to pick up. Someone had combed her hair. The blue-gray sweater was folded over the back of a chair. Linda brought it, Denise said behind me. I touched Mom's wrist. Her skin felt like skin. The room contained a pink plastic basin, a water pitcher, 2 unopened packets of tissues, and a whiteboard that still listed goals for the day. Breathe easier. Rest. I erased them with my sleeve. Mara, Aunt Linda whispered. I'm fine. Nobody corrected me. Scott stayed in the hallway until the nurse came in with a folder. Then he entered and stood by the window, looking everywhere except the bed. The nurse explained what would happen next. I heard every word and retained almost none of them. Personal belongings, release authorization, funeral home, time with the deceased. She handed the folder to Scott. He handed it to me. You're good at forms, he said. Denise closed her eyes. I took the folder. There are moments when anger can keep a person upright. It is not healing. It is structural support. I reviewed the release form, confirmed the funeral home Mom had once mentioned after attending a neighbor's service, and signed where the nurse pointed. Scott answered questions about the final hours. Denise supplied the names of medications. Aunt Linda folded and unfolded a tissue until it became a damp square. When the nurse left, I opened the plastic belongings bag. Mom's robe, her slippers, lemon hand cream, the phone she had used to leave the voicemail. Scott reached for it. I moved the bag out of reach. What? He said. I'm taking her things. I need her phone. Why? Because I do. For what? His eyes went to my pocket, where my own phone was. You listened to it. It was not a question. Yes, you don't know what happened before that. I know you left her alone. His face folded inward. Denise stepped between us without touching either of us. Not here. Scott looked at Mom. That's easy for you to say, he told me. You weren't here for any of it. I could have played the voicemail then. I could have let our mother answer him while her body was 10 feet away. I closed the belongings bag instead. You're right, I said. That hurt him more than an argument would have. He left the room. I sat with Mom until her hand was no longer warm. The funeral director wore a navy suit and had the controlled sympathy of someone who spent every day near people at their least reasonable. His name was Paul, which Mom would have found suspiciously appropriate. Everyone's named Paul in a funeral home, she had once said. That can't be true. Check next time, I almost told him. We chose a casket Mom would have called overpriced, and flowers she would have called a waste. Aunt Linda wanted lilies. Scott said lilies smelled like a church basement. Denise suggested white roses. I asked for the simplest arrangement available. What would Gail have wanted? Paul asked. For us to spend the money on dinner, I said. Burgers, Scott said. Steak, I said. For the first time since the hospital, we looked at each other. Steak, he agreed. The obituary became an argument over verbs. Scott wrote devoted her final months to family. I changed it to spend her final months terrorizing family and friends. Aunt Linda made a wounded sound. She would have liked it, I said. She would have loved it, Denise said. Scott stared at the page, then laughed. We left the line out. Those 2 days kept ambushing me with ordinary objects. Mom's reading glasses beside her bed, a grocery list with pudding misspelled because she had written it without turning on the kitchen light, the red sweater on the hall closet floor where Scott must have thrown it while looking for the blue-gray one. The binder sat open on the dining room table. Scott's handwriting covered the last weeks, oxygen readings, food, medication, calls to the nurse. The entry from the night Mom died read, 8:10:94 at rest, 8 eggs, 9:30 argument, oxygen 93, 10:05 left, Mom stable, water by chair, phone charged. The next line was in Denise's handwriting, 4:47 EMS transported to Miami Valley. I closed the binder. Nothing in it explained how 6 hours could contain the end of a life. Scott slept at his apartment. Denise slept there too, though I suspected neither of them rested. Aunt Linda offered to stay with me at Mom's house. I told her no. She put 3 frozen meals in the freezer before leaving, labeling each one in block letters. I slept in my childhood bedroom beneath wallpaper covered in tiny yellow flowers. At 3 in the morning, I woke because the house was too quiet. The oxygen concentrator had been removed by the equipment company that afternoon. I went into the living room and turned on a lamp. The empty space beside Mom's chair was outlined in cleaner carpet. A book rested face down on the end table. She would have yelled at anyone else for breaking the spine. Her phone was inside the belongings bag on the couch. I charged it and opened the call history. My name appeared once. Scott's appeared twice after that. One outgoing call at 2:16 that lasted 4 seconds. Another at 3:58 that lasted 12 seconds. Then 911. I did not ask him about those calls. Not yet. The funeral was on a cold morning under a sky the color of an old spoon. I wore my dress uniform because Mom had demanded it years earlier during one of her cheerful attempts to plan her own death. I paid taxes for that outfit, she had said. I want to see what I bought. It doesn't work that way. Nothing works the way I paid for it. At the service, people looked at the uniform and then at me as if it explained my absence. Some thanked me for my service. I thanked them because that was the shortest path through the moment. No one stood. No one saluted except the honor guard during the flag ceremony, and that salute belonged to Dad's veteran status through the family plot's arrangements, not to me. There was no great recognition. I was simply Gail's daughter in polished shoes, standing beside her brother while the ground waited. Scott cried without making a sound. When the minister said Gail had been surrounded by the people she loved, Scott's jaw tightened. I was not one of those people in the room. That fact did not disappear because my mother had chosen it. At the cemetery, he placed one hand on the casket before it lowered. His palm stayed there until the funeral director quietly stepped closer. I wanted to touch him. I did not know whether I wanted to comfort him or push him away, so I kept my hands at my sides. Afterward, everyone returned to Mom's house with food. Grief turned the kitchen into a badly organized buffet. Casseroles covered the stove. Coffee appeared in 3 different pots. People kept asking where Mom stored serving dishes, then apologizing when they remembered she was the person who would have answered. My dress uniform hung in her bedroom because Aunt Linda had warned me I would ruin it around tomato sauce. I changed into black slacks and a sweater. The cemetery dirt remained ground into the seams of my shoes. When I came back to the kitchen, Linda was peeling foil off the baked ziti. Denise held Mom's good serving spoon in one hand and stared at the open drawer where someone had put it. A box of pink frosted cookies sat beside the sink. "Who brought those?" I asked. "Carol from the insurance office," Linda said. "Mom hated those. She was trying to be nice. Mom hated that too." A few people laughed. Scott did not. He stood at the end of the table, filling a paper plate. Since the hospital, we had spoken only about arrangements, times, clothing, flowers, and who had Mom's house key. Uncle Ray asked me when I had to return. 10 days, I said. That soon? My emergency leave is 14 days total. A woman from Mom's church touched my arm. It must be difficult being so far away. Before I could answer, Scott said, "Some people choose distance." Denise turned toward him. I kept my voice level. "Don't." He spooned ziti onto his plate. "What?" "It's true. Not here." "Why not here?" "Because we buried her 2 hours ago." "Exactly." The conversations around us thinned. Scott put the spoon down. "I'm not going to pretend Mara couldn't have been here." Aunt Linda's foil stopped crinkling. "Scott," Denise said. "No. Everybody keeps acting like this was unavoidable. It wasn't." I looked at him across our mother's table. I tried to stay. "You filled out one form." She tore it up. "You could have printed another." My breath caught. That had been Mom's exact joke. Scott saw it land and continued. "You chose the deployment. You chose the schedule. You chose Thursday. You told me 8 days was fine because she made me. You knew the medication wasn't working. And you still stayed. I asked you to tell me to come home. I shouldn't have had to. You said I should wait. I was trying not to upset her, and now you're trying to blame me for listening to both of you." His eyes filled. "I was here when she couldn't make it to the bathroom. I was here when she threw up medication all over herself. I was here when she cried because she couldn't stand long enough to shower. Where were you? Nobody moved. I know what you did for her," I said. "No, you know what I wrote in your binder. I know you took care of her. You don't get to award me that. I'm not. You show up in that uniform and everybody thinks you sacrificed. I stayed. You left. That's the whole story." I heard my mother's voice in my head. "If he tells them you chose the army over me, play this." "Stop," I said. "Or what?" I took out my phone. Scott's face changed when he saw what I opened. "Mara." I pressed play. For 2 seconds, there was only the oxygen machine hissing in the background. Then Mom's voice filled the kitchen. "Mara, honey, if Scott tells them you left me, don't you dare carry that for him." Nobody looked at me. They looked at Scott. The voicemail played through without interruption. Mom told the room that I had tried to stay. She told them she had torn up the paperwork. She said Scott had promised not to make me guilty for listening to her. Then she did the thing that kept the recording from becoming revenge. She defended him. He is tired and he is scared, and he has done more for me than either of us knew he could. Don't take that away from him. Scott gripped the back of a chair. When Mom said pain made him keep score, he closed his eyes. When she said she loved us both, Aunt Linda began crying into a paper napkin. The message clicked off. No one spoke. Scott opened his eyes and looked directly at me. "You think that proves something?" It proves what happened. No, it proves she was still protecting her favorite. Denise flinched. I placed my phone face down on the table. She protected both of us. Not the same way. He grabbed his coat from the back of a chair. "Scott," Denise said. He pushed through the kitchen, knocking the door frame with his shoulder. The back door slammed hard enough to rattle the glass. I did not follow him. For once, nobody expected me to. Aunt Linda was the first person to move. She picked up the serving spoon Scott had dropped and placed it beside the ziti. Then she moved it 2 inches to the left, then back again. "Well," she said. It was not the correct word, but none existed. Uncle Ray cleared his throat. He had no right. He was tired, Linda said. So was Mara. "I know. I'm not saying." "You are saying," Ray replied. "Stop." Everyone looked at me. I hated that. 5 minutes earlier, they had been looking at Scott. Now that he was gone, I had become the nearest surface for their judgment to land on. "Mom said not to take away what he did," I said. "So don't." "He lied," Ray said. "He also took care of her." "One doesn't erase the other," Denise said quietly. She had not moved from the counter. Mom's good serving spoon was no longer in her hand. "No," I said. "It doesn't." Linda dabbed at her face with the same paper napkin. Pink frosting from one of the cookies had smeared near her thumb. "Did Gail know?" she asked. "Know what? That she was going to—" The sentence could not finish itself. "I don't know." "Why else leave that message?" "Because she and Scott fought." Denise looked toward the back door. "What did they fight about?" Ray asked. I could have answered. I could have told them about the shower, Celia. Scott's need to own the care. Mom's refusal to become his proof. "That's between them," I said. "It was the first protection I gave him after the voicemail. It would not be the last." Denise found her coat. "I should go." "Are you going after him?" Linda asked. "I'm going home." The distinction was clear enough that nobody asked another question. She stopped beside me. "You didn't do anything wrong by playing it." "I know. Do you?" I looked at the phone lying face down on the table. "No," I said. Denise touched my shoulder once, then left. People departed quickly after that. Grief had been acceptable. Family truth made everyone remember errands. They carried away dishes they had brought and left the food. Aunt Linda packed the ziti into Mom's containers despite knowing nobody wanted it. Ray hugged me too hard and said, "Your service matters," which was kind but not helpful. By 6, the house was empty. I washed paper plates because my hands needed a task before my brain noticed they were disposable. Mom would have called it wasteful. Then she would have stood beside me, drying them to prove a point. I threw them away wet. Scott did not answer his phone that night or the next morning. Denise replied once. "He's safe. He needs space." I typed, "So did Mom," then deleted it. Instead I wrote, "Thank you." Sorting a dead person's house is mostly deciding which pieces of trash feel sacred. I kept grocery lists and discarded bank offers. I saved Mom's chipped coffee mug but threw away 11 plastic lids with no matching containers. Her closet held 6 nearly identical cardigans, including the blue-gray sweater, which turned out to have a hole beneath one arm. In the hall, the wallpaper beside the bedroom door had a long gray dent at hip height. I touched it and found the plaster slightly crushed. Celia noticed me looking when she came by to return her key. "Oxygen cart," she said. "Scott?" Every night, he'd bring the portable unit down the hall, catch the wheel there, curse quietly, and do it again the next day. He could have moved the table. I told him. What did he say? That the table had always been there. That sounds like him. She held the key in her palm but did not hand it over. "I'm sorry," she said. "Thank you." "Your mother was difficult." "I know. I liked her. I know that too." Celia smiled. We sat at the dining room table. The binder remained closed between us. I had not moved it since reading the final entries. "Why did Scott reduce your visits?" I asked. Gail asked. And he agreed too fast. "Why?" Celia considered that. "Your brother loved being useful. Some people hear help as company. Some hear it as criticism. Scott hears criticism in the weather. He worked hard. I know. Harder than he should have. That was his choice. It was. It was also your mother's. I looked at the key in her hand. Did he ever neglect her? No. The answer came immediately. Did he make bad calls? Yes. Which ones? He let her refuse help when she needed it. He wanted to respect her, and he wanted to be the one she needed. Those motives got tangled. Did he leave her alone often? No. That night was unusual. I already knew that, but hearing it from Celia changed the shape of my anger. He told people I didn't call, I said. Her eyes lifted to mine. Who told you that? Nobody yet. The word yet made her look away. What did he say? He said you were busy. He said calls upset Gail because you asked too many questions. Did they? Sometimes. That isn't the same as not calling. No? Did he tell you not to mention me? Not exactly. What does exactly mean? Celia sighed. He would carry the phone into the kitchen when you called. Said he didn't want Gail getting worked up. If I asked whether you knew about something, he'd say you had enough to worry about. I looked at the binder. He made it sound like he was protecting you, she continued. Maybe some days he was. And the other days? He was angry you could call from far away and still make things happen. She finally placed the key on the table. People can love you and compete with you at the same time. In this family, it may be required. Mom's friend Joan came the next afternoon with a box of photographs. She had known Mom for 27 years and dressed for casual errands as if someone might unexpectedly ask her to host a luncheon. Her silver hair was sprayed into a smooth helmet. Her lipstick did not move when she drank coffee. I didn't want these lost, she said. The box contained church picnics, holiday dinners, and vacations Mom had complained through. In one photograph, Scott and I stood beside Dad's old grill while a shrub burned behind us. I wondered where that went, I said. Joan smiled. Gail gave me duplicates. We sorted quietly until she found a photograph of me in uniform beside Mom. Joan set it down. I owe you an apology. My body went alert. For what? I believed you did not want to hear about her illness. Why? Scott said your work required focus. When? Several months ago, I asked Gail whether we should call you after she had a bad week. Scott said you knew enough and that discussing it only made you anxious. Did Mom agree? She didn't disagree. That hurt in a different place. Joan folded her hands. He also said you had chosen to remain deployed when you could have returned. I stared at the photograph. Mom was smiling at the camera. I was looking down at her, caught in the second before I knew the picture was being taken. What did you say? I said service asks a great deal of families, a perfectly polite way to accept a lie. Why didn't you ask me? It wasn't my place. No. Apparently it was his. She looked ashamed. I softened my voice. You didn't know. I could have asked. Yes. She nodded, accepting the correction. That became the pattern over the next several days. Linda admitted Scott told her I was married to the Army and would only come if the doctors used the word emergency. Ray said Scott had complained I managed their mother like freight. A neighbor said he assumed I called once a week because Scott always described me as too busy. Each story was small enough to be defended as frustration. Together, they formed a version of me who had never existed. I corrected every one. I did not call additional people to clear my name. I did not send the voicemail around. But when someone repeated Scott's story, I said the same thing. I tried to defer. Mom refused. I requested emergency leave. She asked me to wait. Scott knew. Some people wanted more. They wanted villains to simplify the grief. I gave them no more. Denise returned Mom's spare house key 3 days before I had to leave. Scott said it was his. She told me. Why didn't he bring it? You know why. Are you two okay? Her mouth tightened. That depends what okay means. It had become a contaminated word in our family. I'm not asking you to choose between us. He is. I leaned against the kitchen counter. What did he say? That if I think the voicemail proves he lied, then I don't understand what he lived through. What do you think? I think he lived through something terrible. I think he lied about you. Both can be true. The back door opened. Scott stepped inside as if summoned by his own name. He stopped when he saw Denise. And you said you were dropping off the key. I did. To Mara? It's Gail's key. It was Mom's. That is what I said. He looked thinner. His beard had been trimmed badly along one cheek. He carried an empty canvas tool bag. I came for my drill, he said. It's in the basement, I told him. He walked past us. Denise picked up her purse. I'll go. Scott did not look at her. The basement door shut behind him. I waited until Denise left, then followed. He was kneeling beside Dad's old workbench, putting tools into the bag, his drill, a level, 2 screwdrivers, the ordinary equipment of the months he had given Mom. You told Joan I didn't want updates, I said. His hand stopped over a wrench. She misunderstood. Linda too? I vented. You told the neighbor I barely called. I said you were busy. You told people I chose to stay after Mom asked me home. She did ask you home. She told me to wait until Thursday. Same result. No, not the same choice. He zipped the bag. You got what you wanted, he said. Everybody heard her defend you. I wanted you to stop lying. You played it in front of the whole family. You accused me in front of the whole family. At least I used my own words. I almost laughed. You're angry Mom left me proof. I'm angry she turned her last message into your alibi. She also used it to defend you. I didn't need her defense. No, you needed my guilt. He stood. For a moment, his face emptied of every argument. Then it returned. You weren't there. You're right. The answer stopped him again. I wasn't there, I said. You were. You did the work. You loved her. You failed her sometimes. So did I. None of that gives you permission to invent my choice. His grip tightened around the bag. What are you going to do? Tell the truth every time. For how long? For as long as you keep lying. He climbed the stairs without answering. At the back door, he turned. Thursday came, he said. She didn't. Then he left me standing in the kitchen with the spare key and no way to correct him. He was right about one thing. Thursday came. I woke that morning in Mom's bed because my childhood mattress had started making my back feel older than the woman we had just buried. For several seconds, I did not remember where I was. Gray light pressed against the curtains. The house held the deep silence that comes after appliances have been removed. My flight itinerary still existed in my email. Arrive Columbus, 9:42 p.m. I would have rented a car. I would have complained about the drive. Mom would have tried to stay awake in her chair, and Scott would have told her to go to bed. The blue-gray sweater would have been on the back of the chair because she wanted me to find it without admitting she had dressed for my arrival. That version of Thursday was so detailed, it felt stolen rather than imaginary. I stripped Mom's sheets, washed them, and remade the bed before leaving for the airport. Aunt Linda took the house key and promised to meet the donation company. I gave her the binder because I could not decide whether it was a medical record, a family history, or an accusation. Keep this safe, I said. She held it against her chest. Do you want me to give it to Scott? No. Do you want it later? I don't know. That isn't like you. No. She started crying again. I hugged her, this time properly. At the airport, nobody knew I had buried my mother. I stood in security behind a man arguing about whether peanut butter counted as a liquid. A woman removed 3 silver bracelets and dropped each one individually into a plastic tray. The world's refusal to recognize private catastrophe was almost insulting. It was also a relief. Back in Jordan, my desk looked exactly as I had left it. Benitez had stacked completed route packets in the left tray. Someone had replaced my pen with one that leaked blue ink. A sticky note on my monitor read, "Nothing exploded. Lower your expectations." I set down my bag. Benitez looked up from her coffee. You good? No. Okay. That was all. For the first week, I worked with a kind of mechanical precision that fooled everyone except her. I checked route clearances 3 times. I called maintenance to confirm vehicles already marked operational. I added backup departure windows nobody had requested. On the 4th night, Benitez removed a packet from my hands. "You're done. I need to verify the fuel stop. You verified it twice." The second confirmation came from the same person as the first, because he remains employed there. I want an independent confirmation. You want the universe to promise nothing, changes when you're not looking. My fingers tightened on the packet. This is an operation, not therapy. Then stop using my convoy as therapy. I looked at her. She did not soften the words. "If you need to overmanage something," she said, "alphabetize your socks. They're already arranged by weight." I was afraid of that. She took the packet to her desk. I wanted to be angry. Instead, I sat down and watched the vehicle icons move across the display. Scott had accused me of turning leaving into a project. Now I was trying to turn grief into redundancy. Neither worked. The family group chat became active in ways it had never been while Mom was alive. Linda posted photographs she found in drawers. Ray sent long messages about remembering what mattered. Church friends added comments beneath a picture of Mom wearing sunglasses at a picnic. Scott left the group after someone wrote that Gail must have been proud of both her children. Denise did not leave, but she stopped reacting to anything he posted elsewhere. I called her one evening. "How is he?" "Angry? At me? At you? Himself? Gail? The hospital? Oxygen tubing? The concept of Thursday? That sounds efficient. He says the voicemail made everyone choose sides. I told them not to." "I know. Did you?" She was quiet. "I chose a side when he asked me to say he hadn't lied." "What did you say?" I said I wouldn't do that. The dining facility around me was nearly empty. A television on the wall showed a soccer match with the sound off. "Are you still together? We've always had separate homes. Right now, we're also having separate conversations. I'm sorry, I'm not asking you to be. He loves you. I know. He also keeps testing whether love requires agreement." That sounded familiar enough to hurt. "Did he answer Mom's calls that night?" I asked. Denise exhaled. "I wondered when you'd ask." Her phone showed 2 calls to him. The first went to voicemail. He was in the shower. "And the second?" He answered. 12 seconds. She said she couldn't find the remote. "That's all?" "That's what he says." "Do you believe him?" I believe that's what she told him. I stared at the blank corner of the table. He didn't notice her breathing. He said she sounded winded. She said she had walked to the bathroom. He should have gone back. "Yes." The word landed without drama. Does he know that? "Yes." Then why is he blaming me? "Because you missed her death by 40 minutes. He missed the moment he could have changed it by 2 hours. I closed my eyes. That was not forgiveness. It was not excuse. It was simply the cruel geometry of the night. Did going back change whether she died? I asked. Probably not, probably. Mara, pulmonary fibrosis doesn't care who is in the room. No. But people do. Scott called me 2 days later. I was asleep. His name lit the dark, and I nearly let it ring through. "Hello? Did Denise tell you?" His voice was clear. No alcohol, no tears. "Tell me what?" "About Mom calling." "Yes." "Of course she did." "You answered." "She wanted the remote. She couldn't breathe. She was always having trouble breathing. You knew her baseline. Don't use that word with me." "What word?" "Baseline, like she was a graph." I sat up. "You knew what normal sounded like. She told me she was fine. And you believed her?" "You did." The cruelty was accurate enough that I did not reject it. "Yes," I said, "sometimes I did." He went quiet. "I should have gone back," he said. It was the first admission he had made without being cornered. "Yes." "I would have found her sooner." "Yes." "She still might have died." "Yes." "You like that answer?" "No. You always sound so certain." "I'm not certain. Could have fooled me." I turned on the small lamp beside my bunk. The empty bed across from mine was neatly made. "What do you want me to say, Scott? That it wasn't my fault. I don't know what would have happened if you went back." Denise says it wouldn't have changed anything. Then why isn't her answer enough? Because she wasn't the one Mom called. Neither was I, exactly. Mom had called me to leave a message about Scott. Then she called him for a remote. Love did not distribute its final moments according to merit. You should have gone back, I said. That doesn't mean you caused her disease. It doesn't erase every night you stayed. His breath caught. Is that what you told Ray? What? Ray said you corrected him. Uncle Ray had called me the day before, furious on my behalf. He said Scott abandoning Mom was unforgivable. He used the word killed, then tried to retract it. I had stopped him. Scott didn't kill her, I had said. He left after a fight. It was a bad decision. Mom called for help herself. Her lungs killed her. Apparently Ray had repeated it. Yes, I told Scott. I corrected him. Why? Because he was wrong. After what I said about you, the truth isn't a reward for being nice to me. He said nothing for so long I checked whether the call had disconnected. Finally, he asked, "Do you want me to thank you?" No. Good. He hung up. It was not an apology, but it was the first time he called without accusing me of leaving. The days continued. My soldiers asked about Mom in careful pieces. I told them she had died. They said they were sorry. One specialist offered me a packaged brownie from a care box because his grandmother believed sugar repaired bereavement. I ate it at my desk. It tasted like sweetened roofing material. Mom would have respected the competition. I stopped checking every route 3 times. Not because I felt better, because grief was not permission to make everyone else carry my fear. At home, the stories kept correcting themselves. Joan called Aunt Linda and admitted what Scott had told her. Celia told Denise I had defended Scott when Ray blamed him. Linda stopped referring to him as the one who stayed and began saying both of Gail's children had done what she asked, until I told her that version was too neat, too. No slogans, I said. I was trying to be fair. Fair isn't the same as accurate. What's accurate? Scott cared for her. I served. Mom made choices. We all hurt each other. Linda sighed. That won't fit in a sympathy card. Then don't send one. Scott stopped attending Sunday dinners at her house. Nobody excluded him. That mattered to me. His absence belonged to him. When my deployment ended, there was no dramatic homecoming. We flew into Texas at an hour when even the vending machines looked tired. People waited behind a barrier holding signs. I saw spouses, parents, friends, and one man holding a bouquet upside down. Nobody waited for me. That had been the plan. Mom would not have traveled that far even before she got sick. Scott had once joked that if the Army wanted me back, it could return me to the correct address. I collected my duffel, signed for transportation, and spent another day getting to Tennessee. My apartment smelled closed. A stack of mail leaned against the door. The refrigerator contained mustard, an expired yogurt, and a bottle of hot sauce I suspected Benitez had planted during a previous visit. 3 boxes sat inside the entryway. Aunt Linda had mailed 2. Scott had mailed the 3rd. His was sealed with too much tape and labeled Mara's in black marker. Inside were Mom's blue-gray sweater, the chipped coffee mug, 3 paperback mysteries, and the useless heating pad from the linen closet. No note. I lifted the sweater. Beneath it lay a smaller object wrapped in a dish towel. The cordless phone from Mom's living room. A strip of masking tape on the back had one word in her handwriting. Mara. I plugged it in even though there was no landline. For several minutes, I sat on the floor beside the silent phone and waited for it to ring. It never did. The next morning, my cell phone buzzed while I was standing in the grocery store trying to remember whether I liked oatmeal. Scott had written, "Did the boxes make it?" I looked at shelves filled with 30 varieties of the same thing. Deployment made American grocery stores feel less like abundance and more like a dare. Yes. Everything intact? The mug has always been chipped. That wasn't the question. I pushed the cart away from a woman comparing nutrition labels. Everything made it. He responded with a thumbs up. Then, heating pad still doesn't work. I almost typed, "It hasn't worked since the Clinton administration." The joke sat in the message box, perfectly shaped to carry us around everything we had not said. I deleted it. Why did you send it? 3 dots appeared. Mom kept it. That was not an answer, but it was probably the only one he had. I put oatmeal in the cart without deciding whether I liked it. Returning from deployment involved forms, medical screenings, equipment turn-in, and a mandatory briefing where a man with a PowerPoint reminded us not to make major life decisions immediately. I had already made several major life decisions on bad sleep, but none were reversible through a slide presentation. At my apartment, I woke at 04:30, whether the alarm was set or not. I checked the parking lot from the window and mentally counted vehicles. I arranged canned food by expiration date, then resented myself and mixed it up again. The cordless phone remained plugged into the wall. It did not work, but its red charging light came on. That seemed sufficient. Scott began contacting me through objects. He texted to ask whether I wanted Mom's recipe box. I said Linda could keep it. He mailed me a stack of cards anyway. Most were recipes copied from magazines. Mom had changed measurements without recording what she changed. On one card, beneath meatloaf, she had written, "Scott, less onion." "Mara, stop measuring." I sent him a photograph. He replied, "Accurate." A week later, he asked if I remembered the name of Dad's plumber. I did. Then he asked where Mom had stored replacement furnace filters, even though the house was nearly empty and Linda was preparing to hand it over to the realtor. Garage shelf, left side. Found them. Then nothing for 9 days. He was testing the edges of contact. A practical question, a shared joke, an object Mom had touched. Each one asked whether we could become siblings again without naming what he had done. I answered the questions. I did not cross the bridge. Denise called from Ohio on a Sunday afternoon. "You sound different," she said. "I'm in my own kitchen. Your kitchen has terrible acoustics. My kitchen is 8 feet wide. That explains it." I set my phone on the counter and stirred a pot of soup that had become thicker than intended. "How is Scott?" "He asks about you. He has my number. He thinks you only want an apology." "I do want an apology." I told him that. What did he say? That he already said he was sorry at Mom's house. He said the voicemail proved she was protecting her favorite. I know. That isn't an apology in my dialect. Denise was quiet. "Are you two talking?" I asked. "Sometimes." "As partners?" "Sometimes. That sounds healthy. It's honest." I tasted the soup. It had enough salt to preserve wood. Denise continued. "He thinks everyone abandoned him after the funeral. Nobody abandoned him. He stopped going to Linda's. His choice. He says Ray looks at him differently. Ray knows he lied. He says you made sure of that." I corrected what Scott said about me. I also corrected what Ray said about him. I know. I turned off the burner. I'm not going to chase him around convincing people he's good. No one is asking you to. He is. Probably. The certainty in her voice made me smile despite myself. "Why are you calling?" "Because Gail's birthday is next month. Linda wants to have dinner. Mom hated birthday dinners. She hated other people's birthday dinners. She enjoyed her own. She complained through the entire last one. She wore lipstick. That was because Joan came. Linda wants both of you there." I looked at the calendar on my refrigerator. Mom's birthday was circled because I had never needed to remove it. I can get the weekend. Should I tell Scott? No. "Mara, tell Linda I'm coming. What she tells him is her business." The dinner took place at Aunt Linda's house around a table designed for 6 people and expanded to hold 11. She made pot roast because it had been Mom's favorite, which was not true. Mom liked Linda's pot roast because it gave her something reliable to criticize. Scott arrived 15 minutes late carrying a lemon pie from a bakery. Denise did not come with him. He stopped inside the dining room when he saw me. "You're here. Observant. I thought you were in Tennessee." "I was. Then I drove." He placed the pie on the sideboard. "Linda said you might come. She told me you might come." Sounds like Linda. "From the kitchen," Linda yelled. "I can hear you." That also sounds like Linda, Scott said. The joke escaped before either of us could prevent it. For 1 second, we smiled at each other. Then we remembered. Dinner was a study in adults trying too hard. Ray asked Scott detailed questions about work. Joan complimented my sweater 3 times. Linda served enough carrots to support a restaurant. Everyone avoided Mom's name until her empty place became louder than conversation. Finally, Joan raised her wine glass. To Gail. The rest of us lifted whatever we had. To Gail, Scott said. Linda cried before anyone drank. Mom would have been furious. After dinner, Joan asked about my deployment. She wanted to know whether it had been difficult to return. Yes, I said. She gave up a lot to serve, Ray added. I saw Scott's fork stop against his plate. The old version of me would have waited to see what he said. I would have prepared a response, gathered evidence, and watched for the attack. Instead, I said, Scott gave up a lot too. The table went quiet. He looked at me. I continued. He was with Mom every day. That mattered. Linda nodded too enthusiastically. It absolutely did. Scott's eyes stayed on me. Nobody thanked me for my service after that. It was the most peaceful 5 minutes of the evening. He found me later in the kitchen, wrapping leftover pot roast for Linda. Everyone else had moved into the living room to look at photographs. You didn't have to say that, he said. It was true. You think I need you to defend me? No. Then why? Because it was true. He leaned against the refrigerator. You always do that. Do what? Act like truth is this clean thing you can set on a table. It's cleaner than what you did. His jaw tightened. There we were. I knew that was coming, he said. You came into the kitchen. I came to say thank you. Then say it. Thank you. You're welcome. He looked toward the living room. Someone laughed at a photograph. I was angry, he said. I waited. I was doing everything, and you would call, and Mom would light up. You're blaming her response to my phone calls? No, it sounds like it. I'm explaining. You always explain right before the apology disappears. He pushed away from the refrigerator. Fine, I'm sorry you were hurt. That is not what you're sorry for, see? Nothing is enough. You apologized for my reaction, not your action. I said, I'm sorry. You told people I chose deployment over her. You did deploy. She asked me to. I know. You knew then. Yes, but... I lifted one hand. There. What? The word that makes everything before it meaningless. He laughed bitterly. You want me to say one perfect sentence so you can stamp it approved. I want you to tell the truth without making me responsible for what you did. I was alone here. I know. You had a whole unit. I know. Mom trusted you. She trusted you with her body every day. She trusted you to be good. The sentence was so raw, I let it stand. Scott looked down. When Dad died, you stayed, he said. You handled everything. Mom kept telling people how strong you were. I couldn't get out of bed. You were grieving. I was drunk. Both were true. You never fell apart. I did. I scheduled it badly. He gave a short laugh. I hated you for being what she needed. I wasn't what she needed. I was what I knew how to be. And when she got sick, I finally was. Yes. The answer startled him. I taped the container shut. You took care of her. You proved whatever you needed to prove. Then you decided none of it counted unless I was the daughter who abandoned her. His face closed again. You still don't understand. Then explain it without lying. I didn't lie. I set the tape down. That's why we can't do this. He stared at me. Do what? Act normal, trade jokes, ask where Mom kept furnace filters, pretend the only problem is grief. His eyes shone, but his voice stayed hard. You want to cut me off? No. I want a door that only opens from the truth. That sounds like something printed on a command poster. It means you don't get a relationship with me while insisting I abandon Mom. I never said abandoned. You said I chose deployment over her. You did choose. I picked up the pot roast and walked past him. He caught my wrist, then released it immediately. Mara. I turned. His hand hung at his side. What do you want? He asked. One sentence. Which sentence? Mom asked me to go. You knew. You told people otherwise because you wanted me guilty. His face went pale. That's not one sentence. Use semicolons. I started toward the door. And then what? He asked. Then we find out. What does that mean? It means an apology doesn't buy forgiveness. It makes a conversation possible. He shook his head. You get to set all the terms. I get to set the terms for being in my life. You're just like her. I stopped. Mom had set terms too. 6 weeks, Thursday. Finish your work. She had loved us through instructions and called it freedom. Maybe, I said. Scott did not follow me into the living room. When I left, the lemon pie had not been cut. For the next 4 months, he sent no packages. He did not ask practical questions. He did not react to photographs in the family group chat after Linda added him back. Denise and I spoke occasionally, but I stopped asking about him. Silence became its own kind of contact. I knew he was choosing it each day, and he knew I was not chasing. My life continued around the absence. I trained a new convoy operations team. I replaced the expired yogurt. I learned that I did like oatmeal if it contained enough brown sugar to become dessert. The cordless phone stayed plugged in. On the anniversary of Mom's death, I woke at 1:18 in the morning without an alarm. I sat on the kitchen floor and played her voicemail, not all of it, just the first 3 seconds of the oxygen machine. Then I stopped it. At 7:06, Scott texted. Are you awake? Yes. 3 dots appeared, vanished, and returned. Can I come down? I looked at the silent phone on the wall. From Ohio? Already in Tennessee. My pulse changed. Where? The reply came immediately. Outside. I went to the window. Scott's car was parked beneath a tree across from my building. He stood beside it with his phone in one hand and a gas station coffee in the other. He wore jeans, a brown jacket, and the expression of a man who had driven 6 hours only to realize distance had been the easy part. I texted, "Come up." He looked at the screen, then at my window. I stepped back before he could see me. His knock came 2 minutes later, 3 even taps. No family member had ever knocked on my door that politely. When I opened it, he lifted the coffee slightly. I didn't know what you drink. You've known me 40 years. You've been gone a lot. It was not an accusation, at least not yet. Coffee, I said. I drink coffee. I meant what kind. Hot. He looked down at the cup. This may not qualify anymore. I moved aside. He entered carefully, as if my apartment might contain tripwires. His eyes went over the small living room, the boots beside the door, the framed photographs I had not hung straight. Then he saw the cordless phone on the kitchen wall. You plugged it in. The light works. There's no landline. I'm aware. He stepped closer to it. The strip of masking tape on the back was visible through the cradle. I put that label there, he said. I thought it was Mom's handwriting. I can write in block letters. Barely. He almost smiled. She kept moving the handsets, he said. Could never remember which one had the good battery. I programmed your number into that one and wrote your name on it. Why did you send it to me? He rubbed his thumb against the cardboard sleeve around his coffee. Because every time it rang, she thought it was you. I looked at the phone. Even when it wasn't, especially when it wasn't, that was exactly the kind of detail I had wanted from him months earlier. Something that was not a number. It hurt more than the numbers. Sit down, I said. He chose the end of the couch farthest from my chair. I went into the kitchen and started coffee neither of us needed. Scott set his paper cup on a coaster, which proved he was terrified. How long have you been outside? About an hour. You could have texted. I did, before that. I was working up to it. You drove from Ohio without knowing if I'd let you in? I knew you'd let me in. That confidence could be part of the problem. Probably. He said it without defending himself. The coffee maker clicked and hissed. I stood with my back to him until it finished. When I carried 2 mugs into the living room, he had taken a folded sheet of paper from his jacket. He held it between both hands. What is that? Something I wrote? You brought notes? You like documents. If it has tabs, I'm throwing you out. It doesn't. I sat across from him. Scott unfolded the paper, looked at it, then folded it again. I had a whole thing. A speech? More like a statement. That sounds healthy. It sounded better in the car. Most things do. He placed the paper on the coffee table. I came to say the sentence. My chest tightened. Which version? The true one. I waited. He looked toward the window. Dawn had turned the glass pale gray. Traffic moved on the road beyond the parking lot, people going to work on a day that had rearranged our lives the year before. "Mom asked you to deploy," he said. "You tried to stay, and I knew that. I told people you chose the Army over her because I wanted you to feel guilty." The room did not change. No music rose. Mom's phone did not ring. The coffee maker made a small cooling pop in the kitchen. "Why?" I asked. Scott stared at his hands. "Because I felt guilty. That's part of it." "I know. Keep going." He nodded. "Because I thought if you felt bad enough, you'd have to admit I did more. You did do more at home. I wanted it to mean I loved her more. The admission came out flat and ugly. That isn't the same, I know. Do you?" "Yes." He looked at me then. "I know because she died, and it still didn't feel like enough." I did not rescue him from the sentence. He picked up the folded paper, turned it over, and set it down again. "When Dad died, you became useful," he said. "I became a problem. Mom told everybody you were strong. She told people I was having a hard time. You were." I hated the way she said it. Like my whole life was weather she hoped would clear. She worried about you. She trusted you. She trusted both of us differently. Yeah, that was the problem. He rubbed both palms over his face. "When she got sick, I thought I finally had something you couldn't do better. I knew how she liked the blankets. I knew which cough meant panic and which one meant she wanted attention. I knew she'd eat eggs if I put too much butter in them and called them hotel eggs. You never told me that." "No, because then you would have put it in the binder." "I might have. I know." He laughed once, but his eyes were wet. "The binder drove me insane," he said. "Every time I opened it, you were in the room. Your tabs, your instructions, your money-paying Celia. Mom would ask what the binder said when I was standing right there. 'So you reduced Celia's visits?' Mom asked. 'But you wanted to.' 'Yes.' And when she asked to restore them, I heard her choosing your plan over me. She was asking for help bathing. I know that now. You knew it then." He nodded. "Yes." The absence of but was almost painful. He continued. "That night she said love wasn't a scoreboard. I told her that was easy for her because you were always winning. She said you had offered to give up the deployment and she wouldn't let you." "I know." I said maybe she should have. The coffee cooled untouched between us. "She told me I didn't want you home. I wanted you guilty from far away. Mom had seen it before either of us." "What did you say?" "I told her she always took your side. And then you left." "Yes." "She called you." "Yes." "You answered the second time." He pressed his lips together. "She asked about the remote. I heard her breathing. I asked if she needed me to come back. What did she say?" "She said, 'Don't be ridiculous. I finally have some peace.'" That sounded like her. I wanted her to apologize, he said. So I said goodnight. "You knew she was winded." "Yes." "You should have gone back." "Yes." This time, the word did not fight. He wiped his palms on his jeans. When the hospital called, I knew. Before I got there, before the doctor said anything, I knew I had missed the last chance to get it right. Then you were on the phone asking questions, giving instructions, sounding like you knew what to do. I didn't know. I know that now too. I was terrified. I know. He swallowed. When she died before you got there, part of me was glad. The honesty was so brutal, I went still. Scott looked directly at me. I'm ashamed of that. But for maybe 1 second, I was glad you missed it, because I had been there for all of it, and I wanted there to be one thing your competence couldn't fix. My fingers tightened around the mug. That's cruel. Yes. You met me outside her room and punished me. Before I even touched her. Yes. You told everyone I chose not to come. Yes. You used the worst moment of my life to hide from yours. His face twisted. Yes. I stood and carried my coffee into the kitchen, not because I wanted more, because sitting had become impossible. Scott remained on the couch. You said the sentence, I told him. I did. It doesn't fix it. I know. I don't forgive you because you drove down here and finally admitted what happened. I know. I can understand being exhausted. I can understand making a terrible decision after a fight. I can even understand hating me for being gone. He nodded. I can't understand what you did with her last words. He looked toward the cordless phone. I made her voicemail about me. You made her death about beating me. Yes, I'm not ready to forgive that. Scott's eyes closed. For a second, I expected the old defense. Nothing is enough. You set the terms. You weren't there. When he opened his eyes, he only said, okay. The word gave me more room than an apology. I leaned against the kitchen counter. What did you write? He picked up the folded paper. Mostly excuses. Good thing you didn't read it. Yeah, he tore it once down the middle. Don't make a performance out of that. I wasn't. You brought a written speech and tore it in half. That's a performance. He looked at the pieces. Fair. He folded them together instead of tearing them again. I called Linda, he said. When? Yesterday. What did you tell her? The same thing. Not as cleanly. She doesn't require clean. No, she cried so hard I thought the call dropped. That sounds like Linda. I called Ray too. How did that go? He said he wanted to punch me. That also sounds right. I told him you were right when you said I didn't cause Mom's death. You didn't. I still left. Yes. He nodded. I called Joan. I haven't called Celia yet. She already knows more than we do. Probably. And Denise? She was first. What did she say? That an apology isn't a time machine. I like her. So do I. Are you together? We're talking. That wasn't the question. It's the answer I have. Mom would have approved. Scott picked up his coffee, discovered it was cold, and drank it anyway. Did you come here because it's the anniversary? I asked. Partly. What's the other part? I've been sitting with that sentence for 4 months. Every version had a but. What changed? Denise asked whether I would rather lose you than lose the argument. And? I told her I'd already lost you. You hadn't. I didn't know that. You could have called. You told me the door only opened from the truth. And you spent 4 months in the hallway? I had a long drive to think about the handle. That metaphor got away from you. Yeah. I sat down again. The phone containing Mom's voicemail rested on the small table beside my chair. I had placed it there after waking at 1:18. Scott noticed. Do you listen to it a lot? No, I've only heard it once. At the funeral. He nodded. I mostly heard the part about keeping score. That was not the kindest part. It was accurate. I picked up the phone. Do you want to hear it? His first reaction was fear. Then he said, I don't know. That's allowed. What do you want? I want to hear her without using her as evidence. He looked at the screen. Can we do that? I don't know. Neither of us moved. Then Scott shifted to the other end of the couch, leaving space beside him. I sat there. For most of our lives, we had occupied rooms as opposites, the reliable one and the difficult one, the daughter who left and the son who stayed, the soldier and the caregiver. We had treated every truth as if only one could survive at a time. I pressed play. The oxygen machine filled my apartment. Scott's shoulders curled forward. Mara, honey, if Scott tells them you left me, don't you dare carry that for him. He winced. I did not stop the recording. Mom said I had tried to stay. She said Scott had promised. Then she said he was tired and scared and had done more for her than either of us knew he could. Scott covered his mouth. When she said, don't take that away from him, a sound came out of him that I had never heard before. I held his wrist. Not his hand. Not yet. His wrist beneath my fingers, solid and shaking. Mom apologized for being a sick mother who still tried to manage everyone. She told me to finish my work. She told both of us we made love difficult. Then the recording ended. Scott kept his face covered. "She knew I would do it," he whispered. "She knew you might. That's worse. She also knew I might let you." He lowered his hands. "Did you?" "For a while." "I'm sorry." This apology was not attached to an explanation. "I know," I said. He looked at me. "She asked you to go," he said. "I asked you to stay guilty." "Yes. I won't do that again. If we rebuild, you don't get to turn me into the bad daughter whenever you feel small. I know, and I don't get to reduce what you did to the bad choices at the end." He looked surprised. "That isn't equal," I said. "I'm not making it equal. I'm making it whole." He nodded slowly. "The whole truth," he said. "The whole truth." I placed the phone face down on the table. Scott stayed through breakfast. I made oatmeal. He added so much brown sugar that Mom would have accused him of making cake in a bowl. We talked about Denise, my new team, his job, and the fact that Aunt Linda had somehow inherited all 11 unmatched plastic lids. We did not become repaired over oatmeal. He still had people to correct and trust to rebuild. I still had anger that arrived without warning. Forgiveness remained somewhere ahead of us, no longer confused with forgetting. At the door, Scott put on his jacket. "Text me when you get home," I said. He looked down the hallway, then back at me. "You know I'm standing in your apartment, Ohio." "Oh?" He smiled. "I will." After he left, I did not replay the voicemail. I straightened the 2 mugs on the coffee table, then forced myself to leave one slightly crooked. At 2:13 that afternoon, my phone rang. Scott's name appeared on the screen. I answered.